Good morning, this is Newswire. Dennis Aseto. The head of public service, Felix Koskei, says the government cannot afford the 12 billion shillings needed to pay the salaries of over 1,200 interns. Speaking Naivashi, Koskei said the 206,000 monthly payment to medical interns is unachievable, adding that the government can only afford 70,000 shillings.
This internship was to enable this doctor to hone his skills and to end up getting a license where now he can go and practice. So why don't we make sure that all of them within the budget that we have go through them? That is why we said we are setting aside 2.4 billion to take all of them. I think they are 1,200 or somebody, all of them on board. Let them go to undergo their internship and go out there after 1 year they can charge whatever they want. They can earn 500,000, they can earn 1 million.
Koskei blamed the doctors for the current health crisis in the country, saying they've ignored court orders.
We are intentional on this, and we are committed to sort out once and for all, as the court directed, that there are issues that caused this strike, and there are perennial grievances that have been developing this country for a long time. We want to sort out all of them, and it requires all of us to agree. It requires an enabling environment where everybody is ready to discuss and offer solutions on the table, and we are ready. And I'm the chairman of the whole of nation committee.
The health says Susan is staring at a possible impeachment over her handling of the medic strike that enters the 22nd day today. Now, as Kenyans continue to struggle with the healthcare services, National Council of Churches of Kenya is urging the CS to resign. This as an MP caucus dubbed ground team pushes for impeachment in Parliament. In a statement after meeting KMPDU leadership, the legislators led by Babu Owino stated that they have submitted papers to the clerk calling for Nakumicha's impeachment on grounds that Kenyans are being denied their right to healthcare.
Notice of motion, the removal of the Cabinet Secretary for Ministry of Health, Susan Nakumicha. Pursuant to Article 152.6 of the Constitution, as read with Standing Order 66, I wish to notify you of the intention to move a special motion the Cabinet Secretary for Health from office on 2 grounds. Number 1, gross violation of Articles 26.1 and 43.1a of the Constitution, which provides for the right to the highest attainable standard of health respectively, and 2, incompetence.
The leaders of Okoh accused the government of not engaging the medics on the impeachment of the 2017 CBA, saying that there ought to have been consensus before the government gave its position.
When it comes to the payment, how can a cabinet secretary earn more than a doctor? And a cabinet secretary who does not qualify for that matter, and therefore she will be impeached.
Iwapo serikali inazungumzia universal health coverage. Universal health coverage itafanya kazi vipi iwapo madaktari wamegoma, iwapo madaktari hawatakuwa, iwapo madaktari hawalipi pesa ambazo zinaweza kuwamudu katika kazi zao wanazofanya? Hilo ni swala tutakuwa haliwezekani.
Meanwhile, NCCK wants CS Nakumicha to resign for failing to address the issues in the medical sector. They also want Agriculture CS Mithika Nturi to resign over the fertilizer scandal and Roads CS Kipchumba Murkomen over the increased road accidents.
If I was the Minister of Health this time, either if one person dies in some countries because of there's something wrong, either she fixes or steps out. Simple. Mbolea ilitoka, ilipeanwa with the systems that were supposed to be doing. They have the accountability. They have who are the storekeepers. The rate of accidents in Kenya can be measured with the rate of corruption in this country, because there must be something wrong.
And nurses have maintained that they are on duty and will not join the ongoing strike by doctors and clinicians. The Kenya National Union of Nurses Secretary General Seth Panyako says the nurses will not give in to pressure to down their tools because the government has already shown goodwill by engaging them concerning their grievances. The nurses want the government to address issues including signing of the collective bargaining agreement, interns posting and stipend payment. Panyako said the issues are pertinent and need immediate action, but the nurses are satisfied with the ongoing negotiations with the government. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
.5 SpiceFM, Kisumu.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
Good morning, and I love your show.
Thank you.
Having come from a Kikuyu radio background, I migrated to Spice because of the content.
I was born in a slum, but somehow I got a break in life. So sometimes when you see the sweating coming out because of the passion and whatever it is, behind the noise, there are people, and we share the same umbilical cord. It shouldn't be like that.
I am so disappointed. We used to tell Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga that he's doing politics of conmanship, and even President Uhuru Kenyatta, serikali hii ndio iko na conmanship ya hali ya juu. You cannot promise people that you reduce tax, then you double.
In politics, there is the issue of trust. For you to turn around and then stab the same people who gave you that trust, there is no other level of dishonesty. And hii mambo utaona dunia tu.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you very much, Eric, and it's good to be at the Situation Room.
Always a pleasure coming here. This is the most challenging interview panel in Kenya. You guys are very well informed, and as you can see, Charles today very philosophical.
To be poor in this country is the greatest sin you can commit, not just from a legal perspective, but from life generally. It is very, very skewed.
We've just heard on the floor of Parliament, just most recently, a leader within the ODM saying that sisi ni ng'ombe is a baba.
Yeah.
Which means that you are willing to be milked dry.
Hapo.
You cannot force me to believe. I'll give way. If it's land that I'm told to return to you, I will. Okay? Because the court has said so. But I'll continue saying, watu wamenirusha. That's all that I'm doing.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
If you go out of this country and come back the same person, then you have a problem. Buy land, 1 million. Put it there for 5 years. What's the purpose?
It'll have increased in value.
No, that's the thing. That's darkness. That's an eclipse. You don't do that.
I hope you don't believe that a hustler is a poor person, or that all hustlers are poor. I've seen that conversation.
Tell us, who is a hustler?
So who's a hustler? Hustler is a person who is making a living through hard work.
Corruption in Kenya is a political accusation. The people who are actually corrupt are not pointed fingers at.
Kenya is not free. Kenya imeshikwa na mateka. It's under siege.
Have you seen that lodge on Nyeri Road? Very high fence. You can't even
windows
sleep inside.
Up near the ceiling.
Yes. And if you walk there at midnight, you see bats the size of cows.
And when it rains, it doesn't rain on that building.
Yes.
When you're at All Saints and it's raining, it doesn't rain on that building.
The things people will believe.
Good morning and welcome to Thursday, coming towards the end of the week, and what is happening on these streets today. Okay, so we already know that certain parts of the city are going to be closed off because of the road construction that's going on right around Kipande Road and then coming in towards Moi Avenue. So all of that behind the University of Nairobi is going to shut down. It continues with that shutdown, at least for now. Let's take a look at what's happening in other parts of the city this morning. On Uhuru Highway, there's movement. You're getting in and out of the city, no problem. We'll probably see at your junctions that that's going to hold up just a little bit. But as you're coming off of the Thika Superhighway at this point, nothing much popping. Just as you get towards Survey, we'll see a bit of a hold up there. It's already started, but probably towards the start of traffic hour is when we'll see more of that. Kiambu Road looks pretty good. You get towards Muthaiga Square without an issue at all. Let's take a look at what's happening on the eastern side of the city. Coming in from Jogoo Road, traffic heading towards Landis, and it's going to pile up. We know that already. Let's just wait and see what happens as we get into the morning. Apart from that, everything seems to be moving just right. We're going to keep an eye on things Thursday and see what happens as we go along. We'll talk on SpiceFM, KE on X, hashtag The Situation Room.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Welcome to Thursday. It's 4/4/24.
It's what?
4/4/24.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, yes. Mambo iko vipi?
Mambo iko poa, mambo.
Yanabadilika.
Can be a question, it can be a thing.
Mambo sasa yabadilika. Na mambo yabadilika kwa mawaka. Remember the 2017 what was it? Nassau.
Well, it was a campaign song, campaign slogan, whatever that was.
Nassau.
It was actually.
Yeah, this Kenya we go through drama. Hey.
There's always something.
Nassau. And then they start. Na mambo yakibadilika yabadilika kwa mawako. No, that was the 2022 one.
Now that you're here.
Hey. Mambo iko vipi lakini?
Mambo poa.
Very, very good.
You're fine this morning?
I am fine this morning.
I can see that. I'm very happy.
Yes, yes. Our brother City is taking a bit of a rest today. He will be here, God willing, tomorrow. Mambo inasonga namna hiyo. Yeah? Hiya, I will say hello, a big hello to everybody who's now joining us online.
Hello, everybody.
Yesterday they were not here.
Yeah, there was a thing yesterday.
They had an extended Easter.
But they were there the day before yesterday.
No, we extended it. We added them up.
We just put a day in the middle of everything.
We noticed that the online people did not do Easter Monday.
So we decided to give them Easter Monday.
So serikali kasema, no, we must do something about this. So, Easter Wednesday.
We shall greet you properly. You guys welcome. Sorry yesterday. Okay, actually, there's no sorry because it was all planned, right? So I hope you enjoyed your day off the live stream yesterday. And now that you're back today, we welcome you with open arms and ululations and all those wonderful things. Abby?
Yes.
That's right.
Abiro. Let me tell you what we shall be discussing today. 7 a.m., you are sued. What do you do? We'll be joined by Peter Wanyama, who is a legal compliance specialist, at 7 a.m. to have this conversation. All right, so how do we interact with lawyers anyway? Niko na wakili. My lawyers will talk to you. Okay. Should we even be scared of hearing the word lawyer?
Should we?
Shindio. And then at 9 o'clock, we'll have a conversation about what's happening in Sudan. So it's been over a year since proper all-out conflict broke out in Sudan, in Khartoum. The two warring factions, which are all armed, which are all factions of the military, basically just going all out on each other. And what has happened in that country? It's a sad thing. What should be done to bring peace? What's happening in Sudan? We will be joined by a lady called Joratel Kamal Kanu. She is a political economy, peace building and development practitioner. Comes in at 9 a.m. just to tell us, okay, so what's happening in Khartoum? Nini inaendelea. What should happen next? Okay, we'll be hearing from her at 9 a.m. Sawa.
Yep.
Hiyo ni sawa. Tell us about the weather, tafadhali, and then we will look at everybody who's online and give a big round of applause to everybody who's joined in. It's 6:15.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. The weather with SpiceFM.
Degrees with sea highs of 25 and lows of 16, and it's cloudy at 16 in Nakuru with highs of 21 coming down to lows of 15. 16 will be the low in Nyeri, where it's raining this morning at 17, and we'll see highs of 24. All right, looking then into a cloudy Eldoret at 14. We'll see highs of 21 and lows of 13. And in Mombasa this morning, it's cloudy at 26 with highs of 31. Malindi is clear at 26, highs of 32. And we're looking into a cloudy Kisumu at 18 with highs of 25. Kakamega this morning is clear at 16, highs of 25, and then into Kampala it's cloudy at 19 with highs of 27, and into Dar es Salaam it's raining this morning at 26 with highs of 30, and back down to lows of 26. Johannesburg is cloudy at 14 with highs of 22. Mogadishu this morning at 25 is cloudy, highs of 33. Addis Ababa at 14 is cloudy with 23 as the high. Lagos clear at 28 with highs of 34 today, and we'll also see highs of 34 in a rainy Kinshasa currently at 24. Looking into Beijing, cloudy at 14 Thursday afternoon, going to highs of 18 and lows of 5. It's a rainy morning in Paris, highs of 19 and lows of 13, and it's cloudy at 12 in London with highs of 16. Wednesday night is a windy night in New York. The Big Apple will see highs of 7, cloudy with lows of 4.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Right. Robert Mbogo says good morning from Mombasa, and Karibu Sana. Yes, I hope you enjoyed your days off. My hands are so dry. Gosh. Okay. Mutuma Juma says good morning, Team Spice. Chris Adede says good morning, greetings from Mombasa. Jeffrey Mogaka is tuned in this morning and says good morning, everybody. Tuned in from Miritini, Mombasa. I'm looking forward to a great interview. He Kenya kuwa mgon. Okay, let me slow down. I'm thinking I can read Kiswahili very fast. He Kenya kuwa mgonjwa ni kama umekosea. Nyaboke apewe za dhati.
Nyaboke chukua za dhati.
Umechukua. Okay. Zeke says good morning, y'all. Glad you're online today. Yes. Dominic Abuka says good morning. Felix Bosira says good morning. Tune into Dynamic Trio. Enjoying the show from Eldoret. Evans and Tabo says, please, mambo ya doctors, what's happening? Well, we know what's not happening. They've not gone back to work. King Dave Lubale says, good morning. Can you imagine yesterday I was upset all day because of you guys? But why? Well, because of the live stream was not live. Understand? Very, very sorry. We're going to make up for it today properly. Properly. Tuning from Malindi, Samuel Bakora says good morning. Vesh Musanga is also tuned in. Welcome back. Missed you yesterday. Thank you. Agola says, otherwise, where were you, Jana? We were right here, sister. It's just that, the tech didn't tech. One Mike says, good morning, Situation Room. Happy Friday Eve. Keep your third eye open. Okay. We'll do that. Ricardo Mariero says, good morning, kings and queens. Prevention is always cheaper and better than cure. It's true. Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia is where Jimmy is. Okay. George Okoh says, good morning to everybody. Literally everybody. Eric, CT, Ndu, Ednah, Yego. I'm watching you live from Miami, Florida.
Where?
Everybody, good morning. Have you good morninged?
Everybody, good morning.
Cash Bish says good morning, missed the show yesterday, sorry, here we are this morning. Stephen Kihonyu says good morning. Akika Kiki says good morning from Arua in Uganda. Canada's tuned in. Hamjambo, everybody. D Maxi is also tuned in from Kitale, Trans Nzoia. Agri Momanyi says the government why now? It says, how do you look down on the country's healthcare? Doctors out for a week and the government is not moved. It's been more than over a week, actually. Nasa Hawa and Jana Spice got Naswad.
Allah.
Atike.
Sababu tulifanya ile kitu.
Don't know.
Besiktas, Istanbul, Turkey. We're here and you guys are 1 hour behind. Yes. There's so many people online this morning. The Princess and Her Majesty have been acknowledged. Thank you very much. You are all welcome to this kingdom. Dennis Legami says good morning. George Mugweru tuned in from Nanyuki where it's cold and rainy. I would love to experience that. Karanja Jehia says good morning. Alex Mnai is also here, tuned in from Wangige. Fantastic program, great to have you here. Bernice Fenton, that name just sounds like
where?
You're sitting having a cup of tea out of some very expensive china and eating croissants that are laced with jam. Hey, that's what your name sounds like, Bernice Fenton. Good morning from Nairobi, everybody. Karibuni sana.
Yes. So in the absence of CT, he is left out the proverb. The proverbs for this week are from which country? The Republic of?
Senegal.
Today's proverb, if the dog is not at home, he barks not. If the dog is not at home, he doth what?
It doth backeth not.
Yes. Yes. Let's hear what Wakili Wanyama will tell us about it at 7.
Okay.
Sindio?
Yes.
Haya. Hata ngaset tuko na hii moja.
Ni kama.
Haya,
well,
you tell us what's on the Standard.
As we wait for the rest to come.
Yes.
No end to pain as doctors say a big no to the offer. No. Hapana mba. No.
Wanataka nini sasa hawa watu?
Well, Kenyans brace for more suffering after doctors and authorities failed to agree. A day after state concessions shown a ray of hope on an ending strike. Yesterday, government warned some of the demands are unattainable. Well, this should be interesting. ODM's funds plea as it rolls out polls timetable nearly 10 years after drama unfolded during the grassroots elections. ODM will hold polls to pick the leaders starting end of this month. However, the party is crying foul over delay in releasing political party funds. Okay. Dr. Bello Kipsang has now said that grade 9 will remain where? In primary school.
Why is this a conversation though? Why are we having this conversation? I thought the presidential working thingy magic said junior secondary will be in primary.
Yeah.
So what's this conversation about?
I don't know. Because they're making noise, it's a transition year, you're going from junior school to
so now school. So come on. So should nursery, what's the last stage of the nursery? Kindergarten, blah 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 blah.
Pre-primary.
K1, K2, K2 nursery.
Sorry, all that is gone. It's now pre-primary 1, pre-primary 2.
Okay. So pre-primary 2 is transition. So we should now also be domiciled in primary.
Why are you angry?
I'm just wondering, what's this nonsense? What is the business angle in this conversation? Anyway, you'll tell us.
We'll read the article and then we'll tell you.
Okay.
Calm down, small.
Sawa.
Take it easy now. Why Kenya is alarmed by Uganda? Ding ding.
There's an alarm.
That Kenya's alarmed?
Aye.
Imagine there's an alarm. Fat cats at center of fertilizer scam tried to kill the story.
They must be fat.
There's a fat cat and it's killing. So there's 9 killed after a quake hits Taiwan. We know that this is an earthquake-prone area, and another one has hit.
Where?
Yeah. TSC promoted 100 dead teachers.
After they died, or they were promoted and then they died?
No, they were dead and then they were promoted.
Aye. Okay.
This is what KUPPET is claiming. Remember, KUPPET is the Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers, and they're saying there's some mago in this game, and they don't like it. So they're bringing out all these things that just don't make sense. Okay, so there's quite a number of stuff to look at this morning, and we'll do just that.
I've got screenshots of the Nation and the others.
Go ahead.
On the Daily Nation today, the main headline is how ruling elite shared KRA jobs. An analysis of recruitment data from a KRA report tabled in Parliament shows that Thikatown, Kiharu and Tarbo were among constituencies from Kenya Kwanza strongholds that took the lion's share of slots in the flawed hiring that has been annulled by the High Court. More than half of the 1,406 revenue service assistant posts went to 2 communities. Thika in Kiabu, 50. Kiharu in Muranga, 40. Turbo in Western Gishu, 29. Moiben, Western Gishu, 26. Kandara in Muranga, 24. Kasese in Western Gishu, 23. Embakasi East in Nairobi, 22. Kasarani, Nairobi, 22. Aya. Then there's this very, very, very tragic story of what happened. An accident in Makueni on Kimakiu. A truck heading towards Mombasa, carrying sand, loses control, moving downhill, meets with vehicles which are coming from Mombasa, heading towards Nairobi. In its wake, death.
Gosh.
A family lost 6 members in that crash. 6 members of the same family had gone to Mombasa for Easter. One extended family. They had gone to Mombasa for Easter. 6 of them died from that accident. What would have culminated in a celebration to remember during this year's Easter holiday for the 40-member entourage of the Nganga family ended in tragedy when they lost 6 relatives in a road accident at Salama on the Mombasa-Nairobi highway on Monday night as they traveled back from Mombasa. Among those who died, Esther Wanjiko, Lemi Masharia, Esther Nyambura. Their photos have been posted here. Young kids. And Miss Dena Nganga is overwhelmed by emotions during an interview at her home in Pipeline, Nakuru County yesterday. She lost 6 members of the family in a road accident that claimed 10 people on Mombasa Nairobi highway. A very, very, very sad story, this one. Okay, other headline related to that. Enforce traffic rule for drivers of buses, parents urge. The National Parents Association wants the government to do the job of ensuring that drivers who ferry children to and from school meet the required road safety standards. The association wants the Ministries of Transport, Education and Interior to enforce the Traffic Act. Okay. Doctors reject state offer as Nakhumicha faces ouster. New Health Authority sets date for the start of shift deductions. Kenyans will start paying 2.75% of their gross salaries to the Social Health Insurance Fund from July 1st, according to the Social Health Authority. They are supposed to be registering us now. See, July 1st is next month, but one. Trump calls migrants animals as U.S. presidential campaign hots up. Raila warns against ODM divisions as party announces staggered elections. That is the nation. Let me tell you what's on the Business Daily. KRA finds new trick to nab suppliers after E-Teams flops. Guy.
E-Teams flops what?
It has flopped.
Okay.
Let me read a bit of it. The Kenya Revenue Authority is rolling out a new plan to get kiosk owners and small-scale suppliers to file electronic invoices after the taxman's attempt to rope in a critical mass of micro, small and medium enterprises into the tax dragnet through E-Teams flopped. The new system, known as buyer-initiated and reverse invoicing, will allow small business experiencing challenges with filing invoices to ask buyers of their products and services to generate the invoices on their behalf. Why? See, we just stick with E-Teams and just make sure it works. No, you'll confuse us again. There was a cabinet directive that we all start moving towards a single treasury account.
Yes.
Right? Single account nightmare for banks as state starts audit. The Treasury has launched an audit of the bank accounts held by national and county government entities to pave way for the Treasury single account that the Cabinet approved in January. The exercise is targeting government ministries, agencies and departments, corporations and semi-autonomous government agencies, public funds and projects, county governments and their entities. In a letter dated March 26th, Treasury PS Chris Kipto directed entities to provide details of their accounts, including name of the bank, branch, account number and identities of signatories. Now, you know what has been happening is that all these entities have been opening accounts. You find an entity, it's parastatal, has like 25 bank accounts with 17 different banks. Okay? Some are just keeping money there, pesa iko hapa, pesa iko pale, pesa iko pale. So banks have just been operating with its cash. You know? Now they've been told, all that money, one account kwa Central Bank. KWS puts up 13 tourist camps for lease in Revenue Drive. Higher, there's a newspaper called The Star. Top right-hand corner in teal green.
Is it actually in teal green?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic.
Why Raila may not cede ODM party leader position.
Oh, really? Is that a story? Are you surprised?
Okay. Other small headlines. Anorexia, eating disorders rise among teens in Kenya.
I'm not surprised.
What's causing that?
Because the whole self-esteem, body shaming is a big deal, and it's playing a huge, it has a huge toll on mental health.
Wow.
You want to look a certain way because there's pressure. You think that members of the opposite sex want you to look a certain way, and so you're going to take extreme measures to make sure you fit the bill. It's affecting a lot more people than you can imagine.
So they're just not eating.
They don't eat, or when they do eat, they go throw it up, or they will eat a piece of cheese for 48 hours.
What?
Or they will eat one mango for 3 days.
Teenagers?
Yes.
Who should be eating?
Who should be eating at least 4 meals a day.
What?
Whether there's 3 big ones and 2 small ones. So they will eat. I've actually seen it, and so they're basically skin and bones. And then it does a thing to your head that you're so tiny, but then you're wearing baggy clothes to make yourself look bigger, but you're skinny because you think that's how people want you to look, or that's the look that's accepted. So people are walking skeletons here, dying.
Guy.
Self-esteem is a crazy, crazy thing.
Guy. Battlegrounds to watch in UDA party elections. Constitutional Commission's move to force SRC chair and chiefs to be part-time jobbers.
At what? Come again?
There's a move to force the chair of SRC and chiefs to be part-time, to work part-time.
Chiefs, as in ufanya kazi asubuhi mpaka saa 8.
Chief sasa.
Alafu, and then
usikuje kwangu usiku ati sijui nini.
Mtu alinipiga.
Yeah, kazi yangu nilifunga saa 2 asubuhi. Bang in the middle of the paper.
Oh, done.
Hooded thugs raid residents, beat up relative, demand senator's whereabouts. Omtata's home attacked at night.
Good Lord in heaven.
Yeah. And then they've got this story, and we've got to talk about this at some point. Kenya National Highways Authority is doing a big thing. They are doing a, what is it called, a culvert, an underpass, or whatever, for Nairobi University students to cross.
What they used to be before.
Yeah.
Remember there was that thing that you could go from like church. I used to go, when I first came to Kenya, there was like, every corner had a church. There's St. Andrews, St. Paul's, Nairobi Chapel. So I call it Church Corner. But you used to be able to walk from Church Corner underground, and you come up at Norfolk. Is that not still there anymore?
Sasa wanajenga ya
in the air.
Hapa sasa kwa nini? Coming from the university. So from the university grounds to come now cross over into the university side. I don't want to put one.
Ah, okay.
Okay. Under the highway. So because of that, they have blocked what?
Everywhere.
The highway. So when you're coming from Westlands, you get to the boulevard, you're diverted and you enter into boulevard, you enter into either Harithuku Road or...
Kipande.
No, Kipande. The other one is called what? The one where Media Max is. That goes into Globe Roundabout.
Kipande.
Kipande ni ile ingine ya kutoka Parklands. From Ojijo Road, you get into Kipande Road to get into the roundabout.
Okay, I know the road you're talking about. It's where Masai Market is on Tuesdays.
Yes, that road.
That one.
Okay.
I know where we are.
So everybody coming from Westlands is being pushed into that place to go onto the big roundabout called Globe Cinema Roundabout. Where so everybody coming from the western side, everybody coming from the Thika Road side, from Garissa, is meeting at Globe Roundabout.
Yes. Even now, there's traffic on the Globe Cinema Roundabout right now. It's already there.
And the Star are talking about traffic jam pain as Kenya builds subway on Uhuru Highway. My friend, it is chaotic. I was looking at it yesterday and thinking, Kenya, could you have done better? And I definitely think they could have done better. Anyway, let's take the traffic break. Tell us. In fact, open it.
It's open.
There it is.
There it is.
It's looking like Makratas already. From
there.
museum.
Right there.
Yeah?
Traffic already there.
You see, that's Globe Roundabout. See, that's a road. We'll zoom into it. We get the name of that road. So the road outside KBC is called Harithuku Road. The other road is called Kijabe Street.
Thank you.
That's the one.
Yes.
Right? So everybody from Westlands get to there at Boulevard, you just diverted enter into that road, you go into Harithuku Road, you go to Kijabe Street, you'll have to end up at Globe Roundabout if you're getting into town.
And look at this already. Traffic coming in from Kirinyaga Road, traffic coming in from the Slip Road off of my avenue, and then look at Moranga Road already. It's already a mess. It's 6:30.
Guy. 8:26 minutes to 7. Tell us about that traffic and the other traffic that we expect to see this morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Indeed, so if you're coming off of Murang'a Road this morning, you'll find that you're already stuck in traffic, isn't it? And you're getting towards that Globe Cinema overpass, and that whole circuit is a mess. So there it is, Kijabe Street, and then coming in from Kipande actually might be your way to get out of this. That means you're going to have to go the long route to get out of the city, go towards Western, and then come back around on Uhuru Highway. It's going to be terrible for your head, but it's better that you do that than stick. If you're coming in on Kirinyaga Road, there's also that crazy traffic as well. So in the middle of the city, there will be chaos. It has already begun. So let's see what we can do to plan better to then be able to get out of this mess and do so real quick. Okay, so if you're coming off of Uhuru Highway, coming out of Westlands, you just know that that's where you're going to be led towards, unless you want to take much longer route to get out of the city, go through Arboretum, then come out on Uhuru Highway. You want to think about that? Probably what you need to do. As you come off the Thika Superhighway this morning, not too much of a mess. Try to avoid Murang'a Road if you can, but just keep an eye out on for that. The eastern side of the city, coming off of the eastern bypass, not too bad for now. And then also Jogo Road, a little bit of traffic right around the Makadara train station. Apart from that, we're just getting into the thick of it. Let's see what happens as we do. We'll talk on SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
24 to 7. Okay, grade 9 to remain in primary despite secondary school push. Now let's look at the genesis of all of this. The Ministry of Education has dismissed a push by whom a section of stakeholders who sought to have the final grade of the CBC moved to secondary schools. This effectively means that the pioneer class of the competency-based curriculum will remain in their current institutions next year when they transition to grade 9. Which, okay, they're transitioning to grade 9. Remember, they started all of this when they were in grade 4. It will also end the uncertainty and anxiety over a possible move of the finalist class.
Who's uncertain?
Baby, calm down.
Story, I need to understand. What's the genesis of this whole nonsensical stuff?
Okay, so the thing is that they said it being a transition class grade 9 is your last class of junior of primary school, right?
Yes.
And that they thought since it was a transition class, they should actually move in. Remember, there are also pathways. It is in this class that they start to design the pathways through which you will go into in your senior secondary.
Okay.
So
but
remember,
you begin those pathways in senior secondary.
Yes, you do.
Okay.
In earnest, you begin them in grade 10. You continue 11 and 12.
Okay.
So remember, you went until grade 8. So grades 7
and 8
and 9 are your junior secondary. 9, 10, 11 are your senior secondary. All right. So the argument by stakeholders has been grade 9 is a transition year, and that since you're going into pathways into high school, that this then needed to be domiciled in high school. Whatever reason, we don't understand. Let me just read the rest of the story. Don't get your knickers in a twist just yet. Despite admitting that the transition will be painstaking, the PS disclosed that they initiated the construction of 16,000 classrooms. Let's go back. Basic Education Principal Secretary Belio Kipsang yesterday had dismissed concerns that junior schools are not adequately prepared to host grade 9 learners. Despite admitting that the transition will be painstaking, the PS disclosed that they have initiated the construction of 16,000 classrooms that will be used to accommodate the grade 9 learners. This means that the government has 8 months to prepare for the transition. We are prepared for our children to be in grade 9 next year. We are initiating the construction. It will be a marathon, and Kenyans are not scared of a marathon. See what he did there?
Dr. Belio Kipsang, you're initiating now the construction. You have 8 months. That's not a marathon, that's a sprint.
It is.
It's a half sprint, by the way. 8 months, and you're initiating the story
16,000 classrooms.
It's not a marathon. Marathon would have been 4 years ago, Kipsang.
Right. So you understand what the problem is here? It's a facility issue. All right?
That's one
issue. And this is what he's choosing to deal with. So he spoke at the KICD in preparation for the senior school and the revamping of teacher education. According to him, The decision to domicile junior school in primary school reflects the wishes of education stakeholders during consultations by the Presidential Working Party on education reforms. He said 93% of Kenyans decided through the Presidential Working Party that we will domicile junior school in our primary level. We are not about to change that because we don't even have a window to do that. Okay? Now remember, junior school is high school. This junior school that we're talking about is high school. So that they were not going to change that. They wanted to keep it that way. The ministry's decision now frustrates the push by a section of stakeholders who sought for the transfer. Last week, parents put forth fresh demands to move grade 9 learners to secondary schools next year. This is what they wanted to do.
Which parents?
Parents.
Okay.
This would mean a significant departure from the government's current approach where all 3 junior secondary school grades of 7, 8 and 9 are domiciled in primary school. Silas Obuhatsa is a National Parents Association chairperson, raised fears that hosting the institutions in primary schools risks watering down the implementation of CBC. Obuhatsa says the preparations of the current schools that host junior school are not sufficient for the anticipated demands of grade 9. So again, the issue of it being a transition year and all the demands that this particular year will have on students cannot be met by primary schools as they are currently constituted. He said that the preparations, he argues that the schools will have an intake of grade 1 learners and the institutions need extra classrooms for the finalist class. Is the government able to construct 15,000 classrooms? Your question. Between now and next year, he wondered, noting that it is a projected number of classrooms needed ahead of the transition. Obuhatsa said that the absence of Form 1 admission in secondary schools next year will mean some classrooms will be vacant, providing adequate space for the students. In February, the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers called for a split of junior secondary into 2 and domicile the learning levels in both primary and secondary schools. Under this plan, KUPPET wants grade 7 and 8 learners to remain in primary school while grade 9 move to high school. Time is still there to make amends. The way forward is to ensure that grade 8 is pushed to secondary school. Let us grapple with challenges in grade 7, which is domiciled in primary school, according to none other than Akelo Misori.
So KUPPET wants 8 and 9 to be in secondary.
Yes.
Remember, KUPPET wanted the entire JSS to be in secondary.
Because they say it's high school. They say it's high school, that you're learning at high school level. Why should you domicile it in primary school? Remember that from 2025, this Form 1 that entered in January is the last Form 1. Okay? Now they're saying, of course, we know that there'll be vacant classes, there'll be space, but they're not talking about the space only.
Because secondary school is designed for 4 years, and now we're only going to have 3 years, so we have an extra space there. So why don't we just bring that extra space from those guys? Why are we tinkering with this thing so much?
Because we can.
I mean, what are the business interests? There's so many interests here.
We have to ask that
this
question.
Parents Association chairman person, on whose behalf is he speaking?
On behalf of the association. So when you say which parents, those are the parents.
Because if I hear you correct from what you've read, his argument is because right now we only have classes up to standard 8, those classrooms, we don't have the infrastructure for grade 9, we should move them to secondary. So we deal with the current short-term issue with a long-term solution of saying, now let's split this thing. I'm just not getting...
So the argument is, you're not taking in Form 1, which is high school. You're not taking that in 2025, right? So you also know that this grade 9 is a high school, it is a secondary school class.
Yeah.
And there are demands. You're going to have space in high school because of the Form 1.
Yeah.
Take grade 9, move them to high school. That's what they're saying.
I wish they were just crossing the road or just
but it's easier said than done. It's not...
We have had so many interests at play in this matter that just tells you the Ministry of Education is basically held hostage. So many interests. There are the interests, and I can say here, we have heard very many people saying the interest of the private school providers forced JSS to be domiciled in primary school because many had already invested in creating these classrooms. You have invested in establishing a primary school, private primary school. It has 8 classes. Suddenly you're told you only have up to grade 6.
And you're like, what am I going to do with these 2 classes?
I have budgeted for this kid for 8 years. You're only telling me now I'm going to Kula for 6 years.
So you lobby and you lobby and you
lobby. It stays in primary. Now again we have now an extra lobby that says let's split this thing. It goes to secondary. What are the interests? Because it's not about education. This is not about the education of the children. It is commercial interest. What are those interests that are now pushing this?
What's happening under the behind the scenes that would demand on either side, by the way, Eric, for those who want to retain grade 9 in primary school, there's an interest, just like you said. For those who want to move grade 9 to high school, that too, there is an interest.
Yep. And it's not the child.
It's not the child. Because if it was educating this child, imagine it would be a no-brainer and say, look, what do we have that's available? Let's go.
Or even just taking time. So we are going to have 3 classes in what we now call comprehensive school. All right? This was decided in 2022. We are halfway through implementation of a financial year's budget. Have we constructed classrooms?
No.
How much in CDF is allocated? Because CDF has a huge percentage of that money, over 100 million shillings per constituency, going into education. Has there been a meeting between the Ministry of Education, the members of the National Assembly to say, all right, let's construct classrooms? We also have another budget that we've allocated to education for construction of classrooms to make sure that we have this and the other, to make sure that we have the labs that are required, to make sure that all our comprehensive schools are comprehensive. No, we don't.
It's sporadic.
Now we're getting to this point where Belio Kipsang is saying 8 months is going to be a marathon. It's not a marathon. He has to get a budget approved in June. That money will start coming to him in September. The kids are going into grade 9 in January. These guys are jokers. They're complete
Then we ask what the problem is.
That's the problem. Jokers. Higher. There's a story here about Kenha accusing a local firm with grounded trucks of violating a rule. The issue of way bridges is a big one. A local transport and logistics company is embroiled in a tussle with the Kenya National Highways Authority over the movement of cargo with above normal weights. The firm's trucks have been stuck at the coast for more than a week, loaded with the cargo destined for Uganda, which it says has caused losses for the company and its client. This is PN Mashru, which had sought a special permit to move cargo with a height of 5.8 meters through the Mombasa-Malaba route, passing through Mariakani, Nairobi, and Eldoret. Ken, however, says it can only do so using the other route, as at 5.8 meters, the height is higher than what is allowed on this route due to infrastructure such as bridges that are on average 5.5 meters high and could cause major damage. Ordinarily, transporters are allowed to move cargo with a height of 4.3 meters on the route between Mombasa, Mariakani, Nairobi, Eldoret. Height 4.3 meters. Okay? PN Mashru had sought exemption for a height of 5.3 meters, which was approved. But according to Kenha, when the trucks reached the Dongokundu Way Bridge, the height measured was 5.8 meters.
But he sought exemption.
They sought exemption for 5.3 meters.
Voila, okay.
What is allowed is 5.5 meters.
But his was 5.8.
So he says, my cargo 5.3. It gets to the Dongokundu Way Bridge. They check, this thing is 5.8 meters. Surely, boss, you're going to be knocking down all the bridges along the way. The legal height limitations are 4.3 meters. The trucks have heights of 5.8 meters, which cannot go under most of the bridges over road crossings. This is according to Mike Ongala, who is Kenha's Deputy Director for Axle Load Control. The transporter has therefore been asked to provide a new route survey plan, which can allow free movement of the transit cargo through the country's highways in a manner which guarantees public safety and secure road-related infrastructure. After the trucks were found to be in breach of the exemption given by Kenha, Mashru officials were arrested and arraigned at a Mombasa court, where they pleaded guilty of going against the Traffic Act. The 4 officials were each fined 20,000 bob, failure to pay serving a sentence of between 3 and 6 months. Court ordered Kenha to release the trucks that had been impounded. Kenha explained the trucks are stuck at the coast because they have failed to meet the approved height or given an alternative route. So they've been told, it's okay, guys. You want to move 5.8, you cannot use this particular corridor.
Use somewhere else.
Tell us where else you'd like to use. How would you like to avoid these areas that have bridges and such? And
because you will keep stopping. You won't pass.
Yeah. Mambo ndogo inakuanga.
Just do the thing from the beginning, the right thing.
Yes.
Why is it so hard?
Is there a fertilizer scam or not?
Okay, they are fat cats. Now let's tell you whether there is a scam or not. Was there even fertilizer?
We were told here by Gonjiri Wango yesterday.
Which fertilizer?
That it was mavi ya kuku.
Mtu anaweza sema hiyo ni fertilizer. Now, Namu to name politicians who sought cover-up. Powerful politicians reached out to a journalist to have an investigative story on the fake fertilizer scandal. Dropped. You get it so far?
Yep.
Appearing before the Senate Agriculture Committee yesterday, John Allen Namu of Africa Uncensored said investigative agencies should look for complacency among senior officials of key government agencies. He said it was a matter of concern that the issue did not raise concern among relevant actors all this time. He says, I would like to inform this committee that politicians across the political divide might not have been involved in this fake fertilizer conspiracy.
Might have,
been involved in this fake fertilizer conspiracy. Some even reached out to me seeking to have African Uncensored not to air this story where the majority of these affected are small-scale farmers. Ding, ding. He said he's ready to provide evidence about the politicians who approached him to kill his story and was ready to appear in court. He told the committee the report looked at public procurement since 2018 and that the fake fertilizer scandal cut across the previous and current administrations. Where? Committee Chairman Kirinyaga Senator James Morango said the Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Mithika Linturi and the Chief Executive Officers of Kenya Bureau of Standards and the Kenya National Trading Corporation will appear before it to shed light on prevalent claims of fake farm inputs. Morango said the Auditor General, National Environment Management Authority CEO, and the individuals mentioned adversely in an expose launched by Media Investigations Team, Africa Uncensored, had been invited to appear before the committee to clear the air about this well-executed scandal. So, scandal, eco.
Where?
There is a very serious matter, unlike doctors and advocates whom we may need several times in a year. We need farmers every day, since they provide food for us. We cannot afford to allow a few unscrupulous individuals to get away with the fake fertilizer scandal. He said the scandal was embarrassing, since it makes Kenya look like a country where a few individuals are out to enrich themselves. Makes Kenya look like a country where a few individuals are out to enrich themselves through ways akin to terrorism. He said the scandal is a threat to food security and action must be taken. Namu told the committee that KEBS and NEMA have no capacity to deal with the fake fertilizer scandal since they have staff shortages. He said that creates a lapse which some unscrupulous individuals had exploited. He says he has now been vindicated by the current outcry by Kenyans from various parts of the country. He said, I would like to tell my fellow journalists that they should not be cowed when they are pursuing stories of public interest like the one we did on fake fertilizer. They should stand up and be counted when fighting for the public good. Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei said the role of KEBS, NCPB, KNTC and NEMA in the fake fertilizer scandal needs to be probed further. He says there seems to be a well-orchestrated criminal enterprise leading to relevant state agencies not raising eyebrows. My goodness.
Fertilizer iko fake ama si fake?
It's fake. The things that they found inside, people crying. Look, is somebody going to make up the fact that they opened a bag of fertilizer and they poured it out and they found rocks and other things inside? And how many of those happen to be the case? Where did they come from? Were they imports? Were they things that were made here? This is interesting because what are they being told here? This didn't start in 2022.
Yeah, it's been happening for a while.
It's been happening for a while. So now you start to question, okay, even the one that they said came from outside, did it really come from outside? Or was it just here? What's going on?
It's true. The issue of fake fertilizer has been there for quite a while. In fact, in the previous administration of Uhuru Kenyatta, there even a PS and an NCPP boss who were fired and they were taken to court over an issue of fertilizer that has been brought in, supposed to benefit farmers. It's repackaged, allegedly. It's being resold. It's, finds its way into people's private shops and agrovets and being sold from those outlets. Then now we're talking about fake. It's coming. Actually, it has been removed from the proper fertilizer is not in the bag that's written whatever. DAP is, it is not DAP. You're finding it is kokoto.
Imagine. What level?
And we can go to a point where we're saying, no, it's not fake. No, come on. I mean, just a small, no, it's not. There's been so much. The Prime Cabinet Secretary over the weekend said, on this issue of fertilizer, because I want to shoot straight. He said that. He said, the ministry, you know who your suppliers are. You know what the batches are. You can clearly just track back and say, if this bag has been found and this and that and the other, then we can track back and see what is the source. Which supplier is this who provided this? And then deal with that supplier. The Minister for Agriculture has been going on a whole different tangent and saying, no, it's not fake. What we are doing, in fact, is telling NCPB, stop distributing the fertilizer, so that then we can just assure farmers that when we start releasing the fertilizer, it will be clean. What are we talking about?
What rubbish. And then for Namu to come and tell you, actually, you know what? You know him now, he's going to say it as it is. Mimi, I have nothing to lose. I'm telling you the truth. There are people who even told me to kill this story. Why tell me to kill the story if there was actually nothing going on? And you want to know who told me to kill the story? I'll tell you. I'll tell you.
We have scandal after Why would we get to this level? Because it happens once, it happens again. We had an issue the other day, it was fake edible oils. It was fake sugar. Now it's fake fertilizer. I mean, and these fat cats are still
fatting. Look, you can actually, this is the thing. And we keep asking, what kind of value do we place on human life? Because that's it at the end of the day.
Yeah.
What value are we placing on human life? Whether you're talking about consumables, whether you're talking about livelihoods, whatever it is, what value do you place so that you can make what? A quick buck. Okay, you can imagine that there are 1 million bags of fertilizer. You're selling these 1 million bags for what? Give or take 5,000 shillings? Okay? It's fake. It is fake. Maybe there's very little fertilizer in all of these bags. People buy this product. People buy this product every day.
And it's meant to grow food
that Kenya will eat. Right? Because these are smallholder farmers. We are not talking about...
And then some criminal actually infiltrates a government system, goes and repurposes this entire project.
But that's the thing.
Puts in some fake thing. And government investigative agencies do not know what has happened. In fact, we are just confused whether is it true, is it not true, is it real, is it not real? Is it real that there was fake edible oil, or is it not real that there was fake? Is it real fake fertilizer or not real that we have fake fertilizer?
What? But I don't think they infiltrated. I think they are there.
They've just been there.
They've just been there. I don't think they infiltrated. I think they're there, and people have been able to see this is a loophole that I can now use to my advantage. So you're killing people, you're killing the earth, and you're making money that Kenyans sweat and blood. They've gotten the money to come and pay you to pick up.
And to what end? Look,
so if you can make money. That's what I'm telling you.
But you're still going to make money. Look, if you
sold the right thing,
you have been given
anyway.
A contract to supply fertilizer. You've put your markup. You have guaranteed offtake of the product that you land at the port of Mombasa. It's guaranteed. You've been told by the government, bring X number of metric tons of fertilizer. Bring the damn fertilizer. Make your money go.
This is the understanding.
Why are you saying that I want to make the entire amount of money? Why?
Value.
Like, really?
Value. Where is your moral value? Where is your moral value? That why can't you say, because like you said, it's guaranteed offtake. It's guaranteed offtake. People will farm, people will eat. If there's one thing you can be guaranteed that Kenyans will do, they will eat and move. Food will be planted, it will be harvested, people will eat it. So where is your value for you to say, actually, you know what? Let me do the right thing.
Just do the right
Let
thing.
me do the right thing.
I got the supply. I got the business to supply. I went. I sourced actually the best quality. I've brought it in the country. I'm being paid not even by the farmer. I'm waiting until this thing goes and I'm being paid by the government. You have brought how many tons, metric tons? This is what we agreed. Here, take your money. Then the government now ends up with the distribution. But you want to eat 100% of that money.
Exactly. You don't want to put anything in,
and
you
somebody
want to get everything out.
And we've got guys at EACC and DCI who are sitting and they're just, twiddling their thumbs and sucking their fingers and wondering.
Yeah.
And it's like, we are jokers in this country. Haki ya Mungu, we are just lost. Tufunge nchi, 7 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. The High Court sitting in Milimani issued orders restraining law enforcement officers from arresting or detaining former Sports Cabinet Secretary Rashid Echesa. Justice Diana Kavedza said it is the duty of the court to protect Echesa's rights. This is after he claimed to have been held incommunicado for 48 hours by the police when he was arrested on March 27th. Echesa, through his advocate Danson Omari, filed the application seeking anticipatory bail. He also sought orders restraining the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, Inspector General of Police and the Director of Public Prosecutions from arresting and charging him without conducting investigations and giving him an opportunity to be heard. He took issue with how he was arrested, saying it was not procedural. The court heard that his arrest came while obeying lawful summons from the County Criminal Investigations officers in Nairobi area. He believes his arrest is politically motivated. The Communications Authority of Kenya has published the 4th edition of the Programming Code for Broadcasting Services. According to the new code, advertisements will not exceed 10 minutes for a 30 minutes broadcast, and the use of breaking news by advertisers will be banned. Live broadcasts of ongoing host hijackings and kidnappings will also be restricted in a bid to prioritize victim safety. The code goes further to stipulate that unplanned or surprise interviews will be banned. It also states that to safeguard the rights of children, TV programs featuring violence as their central theme will not be allowed to air. Also, the ban on advertising tobacco products remains in place unless for educational purposes. And on election coverage, media houses will be required to apply consistent rates for airtime allocated to politicians and political candidates. And President William Ruto has secured Ghana's support for Raila Odinga's bid for the Africa Union chairmanship during his state visit to the country. In a statement after holding talks with President Nana Akufo-Addo, Ruto said Kenya will in turn support Ghana's candidature for the Secretary General of Commonwealth.
On our part, I have assured His Excellency that Kenya will support the Republic of Ghana for the candidature of Honorable Shirley Bochwe, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration, for the position of Secretary General of the Commonwealth for the period 2024-2029. Excellency, this presents an opportunity for Kenya and Ghana to collaborate.
Ruto said Kenya's candidature is informed by the country's leading role in enhancing and sustaining the Pan-African agenda in terms of independence and sovereignty, peace and security, development and prosperity, and sustainability and climate action.
Your Excellency, my dear brother, I thank you most sincerely for accepting to support Kenya's candidature for the position of the chairperson of the Africa Union Commission 2025-2028, which has been initiated following comprehensive stakeholder engagement process across government. Kenya's candidature is informed by our leading role in enhancing and sustaining the Pan-African agenda in terms of independence and sovereignty, peace and security, development and prosperity, as well as sustainability and climate action.
Across the borders, and the Constitutional Court in Uganda has nullified 4 sections of the Anti-Homosexuality Act of 2023. The judgment delivered by a panel of 5 judges Wednesday said sections 3(2)(c), 9, 11(2)(d) and 14 of the said act contravened the Constitution of Uganda 1995. The nullified sections had criminalized the letting of premises for youth of homosexual purposes, the failure by anyone to report acts of homosexuality to the police for appropriate inappropriate action and the engagement in active homosexuality by anyone which results in other persons contracting a terminal illness. The decision was occasioned by the filing of 4 petitions challenging the act, which was passed and assented to law on May 26, 2023 by President Yoweri Museveni. Some 22 private citizens and human rights activities moved to the court challenging all 17 sections of the act, alleging that they contravened human rights and freedoms housed in the country's constitution and the international human rights instruments. The petitions were, however, opposed by 4 entities, including the Attorney General and the Family Life Network Limited. The court also received an amicus, an impartial advisor to the Court of Law in a particular case briefed filed by the Secretariat of the Joint United Nations Programme on HIV/AIDS. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Assetto. Good morning.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
All right, a few minutes after 7 o'clock, let's take a look at what it looks like now. So a bit of a cloudy situation up there, and so the rain might come down. It's going to slow things down a little bit. In some parts, already raining. All right, so land is then going towards Kamkunji at that roundabout, then seeping onto Haile Selassie. That's already some busyness happening there. And we're going to, of course, take a look at what's happening around the Globe Cinema overpass and the roundabout. That is already pretty busy. That started very early. Looks like it's going to be until, they said 10 days, but we're not quite sure if it's going to go further or longer than that. As you're coming off of Jogo Road, getting out into the city also, we've seen that slow movement. The Thika Superhighway traffic then coming in from Survey, and that's already at a standstill as you get towards the CBT. All right, what else are we looking at? Some traffic coming out of Westlands, yes, and on James Kishore, it's going to cross over towards Wayaki Way and touch on the Red Hill Link Road. Folks are going to have a long morning. We already know this, so leave early, and now would be a good time to do so. We'll keep talking. SpiceFMKE on X, hashtag The Situation Room.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
How are you doing? Welcome to the second hour of Kenya's biggest conversation. It's The Situation Room. Let's talk about that Ken thing before we even go into the proverb. Ati, what is happening?
Okay, so underpass, overpass, walkway for students, that is the end goal, right? From University of Nairobi basically into the city, so you don't have to deal with that. However, what's being done is that it's being done on the highway. And so all of the traffic that would essentially find its way through to the city center or coming through from Westlands or coming in from the Thika Superhighway or all other roads then has been suspended because of this.
They're calling it box culvert.
Thank you. Box culvert.
New pedestrian underpass. Yes.
Okay, so it will be an underpass. That's what's being constructed. Never mind that there's traffic that's going on a regular basis in and out of the city. That we'll just have to, forget for a minute until that's sorted. The issue here being that it has now come in as an obstruction to traffic that is normally on this route.
Indeed.
Okay? And it's causing a nightmare. So all of your roads here coming into the city.
It's basically from Museum Hill to University Way roundabout. That section has been blocked, and it's blocked off at the Boulevard Hotel.
Yes, it is.
So you're coming from Westlands, you're coming from Wangari Maathai Road, you're coming from Ojiji Road and on to Museum Hill. You get to this section of the road at the Boulevard. the road is basically blocked and you're directed into the Boulevard Road. That's Harithuku Road. So you either go through Harithuku Road, outside KBC, outside Norfolk, outside University of Nairobi, out onto Central Police Station, go onto the roundabout, Globe roundabout. Or you get to KBC at the Norfolk Towers, you take Kijabe Street, go onto the same roundabout, Globe roundabout. This is somebody who's coming from Westlands and they wanted to go to, let's say, Serena.
Yes.
Well, ordinarily they just come down Uhuru Highway, get to the University roundabout, go up into, what's it called, that road? It's called Nyeri Road, into Serena Hotel.
Right.
Okay? Now, find your way. Now, it's okay. Construction is happening. It's important that you actually think about, because the University of Nairobi hostels are on one side of the road. The University of Nairobi classrooms are on the other side of the road.
Yes.
And you need to have an underpass where the students just cross freely and smoothly. That is okay. It's understandable. The question would be, has Kenha done proper signage, proper warning, proper information for motorists to know, so you can start thinking ahead what your alternatives are?
No.
Kenha tweeted it, and they just wrote a tweet and said, you know what, we are doing this, we'll be doing this. It's on Twitter. Somebody who has not seen this tweet and they're on the road, they're coming down Wayaki Way and they want to get into town, they don't know what is ahead of them.
Shock on you.
You're coming down Kipande Road and you want to get into town. You don't know what's happening at Globe Cinema Roundabout, because everybody is congregating at Globe Cinema Roundabout and trying to go up Slip Road, onto Moi Avenue, onto University on one side, and it's just chaos. Look at that chaos.
Already.
Ordinarily, we don't have chaos on Murang'a Road. We have chaos up to the branch of into Wangari Maathai. Today, Murang'a Road, the entire Ngara, busy. The entire Ngara Road, busy. Kipande Road, busy.
Slip Road is building. Slip Road will now feed onto Moi Avenue at some point, and that will become madness. Folks who are looking for an outlet will then go towards Wangari Maathai. If you're coming off the Thika Superhighway, you're coming into Murang'a Road, you will find that traffic that's already building at that junction, and then you will get onto Wangari Maathai. You will then try to come round onto Uhuru Highway and find that it is what? It is blocked.
You go up Wangari Maathai, you come down into Museum Hill, and you find, actually, this is where the problem, the genesis is because this section of the road has been blocked, has been closed off. Kenha is the custodian of the wayleave along the highway. All those billboards that you find along the highway, they are permitted to be there by Kenha.
Yes.
Kenha can erect signs on any road that it wishes to erect signs and tell you, by the way, if you want to go to this part of the road, this is how we advise you to go. But they have chosen not to communicate because this is a choice they've made. Kenha is not at the stupid people.
No, they said that they're going to be done in 10 days, and that was about 3 days ago. That's not going to happen. Here on Mombasa Road, they told us that we'd be done by the 11th of November. 11th of November is when this was supposed to be completed. Today is the what?
Today is the 4th of April.
Okay.
The following year.
Okay.
Just to be clear.
Just check.
Okay?
All right.
The Kenya National Highways Authority, we always have an issue. When a road is done, it's good. When Kenha is constructing a road, their communication is the worst on earth. Complete worst. And here we are calling them out. Kenha, you can do better. Erect signage, let everybody know when they're on the road that you have blocked a section of the road. And this is a main artery. This is not just a simple, this is Uhuru Highway. It's carrying traffic from very many
Parts
places.
of the city to others.
Anyway, our next guest is a lawyer, Wakili Peter Wanyama, legal compliance specialist. Good morning, Wakili.
Good morning, Eric.
Good to have you here.
Thank you.
Have you been here this year? No, you haven't. Happy New Year.
No, I was here last year.
You were busy campaigning earlier this year.
I was here during, I think, the campaign period.
Yes.
Yeah, briefly.
Karibu sana.
Yeah, thank you.
This conversation about Kenha, I mean, you are a road user.
Yeah.
What do you say to this?
Yeah, you know, they have an obligation, They have an obligation to inform road users in advance. If they are making disruptions on the road, they are doing constructions, something has happened on the road, like a road accident, anything that disrupts traffic, I think they have an obligation to.
They do.
Yeah, to direct traffic and warn motorists in advance.
I'm always on the case of Kenha because they are good and they can do much better.
Yeah.
Right? I enjoy using a Kenha road once it's completed. But when there's a construction on a road that's being supervised by, my God, it's usually the most painful thing. And yet, These are engineers. Engineering is a discipline of solutions. Wakili, karibu sana.
Discipline of solutions.
Yes. I want to welcome you with today's proverb. CT is not in today, but he sent me the proverb and told me, tell Wakili to give us his interpretation of this proverb. This week, the proverbs are from Senegal. You know, Senegal has a new president. His name is Faye. They have a new prime minister. Sonko is a prime minister. If you don't give him in Kenya, he'll get elsewhere. Sonko is the prime minister of Senegal. So the proverb is, if the dog is not at home, he barks not. If the dog is not at home, he barks not.
Yeah, I think that's a simple proverb with a heavy meaning. The meaning is that if you are not in your territory, you always keep quiet. Yeah, you are more comfortable in your territory. For example, I can make noise at a place where I have very strong, for example, political support if I'm a politician. But if I go to another place where I don't have support, I'll have to toe the line.
Kunja mkia.
Yeah, kunja mkia. Yeah. When you go to Rome, you do as the Romans do.
The Swahili have a similar one.
Yeah.
Jogo la shamba.
Haliwiki mjini.
Haliwiki mjini.
Haliwiki.
You know what it means?
Wika is?
Kuwika is to crow.
To cry. Crow.
To crow, not to cry.
Okay, crow. Okay.
And you know what Jogo is?
I do.
And you know what Shamba is?
I do.
And you know what Mjini is? Not Genie. Gigi.
I was going to say,
You know what Gigi is? Wakili, we invited you here because we just want to have conversations. There are many times that people have even reached out to us and they're like, okay, so how do I deal with matters of justice? Being a Justice Thursday conversation is about informing people. Somebody has sued you. You receive some summons, something, from maybe it's not even that you've been sued. There's a lawyer writing to you and we have instructions which we hereby convey
on behalf of
on our client. We have been retained by so and so, and we are instructed that this and this and this happened. And you're like, oh my God, sasa hiyo amenipeleka kotini. We just want to understand that whole process. Let's start with before a matter has gone to court, but then a lawyer writes to you saying we have been instructed and you've been given 7 days. What are all those things?
Usually before you file any case as a person, you have to issue a demand letter. So the demand letter you can issue in person or go to a lawyer who will write the demand for you. The demand is to notify the other party of your intention to sue. Usually if you don't issue that demand, then later on when you file the case and you win, you will not be entitled to costs.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you must issue the demand and give notice that is reasonable. You cannot issue, for example, a demand to me saying I need my payment within 2 days. You have to give me a notice which is reasonable. And in law, timelines which are deemed reasonable are usually 14 days.
Even if I do owe you?
You say you now want to proceed to court.
Okay.
Yeah. So the purpose of the demand is to lay basis for a court case.
Okay.
So that the court will look at the notice and say, okay, fine, you issued a notice, it is reasonable, the fellow failed to pay the person demanded from. If it's a debt, you proceed to sue. In some cases, that demand is not necessary. For example, there are some matters which can be very urgent. So you will not even issue a demand letter. So the demand letter works very well when there is a monetary claim. But where in the case, for example, your fundamental rights have been breached, you've been arrested, or someone is interfering with your property, they have come with bulldozers to demolish your property, you don't have time to issue that demand.
That you remove the bulldozers within the next 14 days.
You will go to court immediately, and you will file you will file your case under certificate of urgency, and that demand issue will not be necessary.
Why is the demand important? Why is it necessary as a part of the process?
As I've said, the demand is important for only two reasons. One is to lay basis for the suit.
Why?
You are outlining your suit. You are saying you owe me this money. So you are laying basis for that suit. And in doing so, you are giving a notice to that party. And because the demand will usually say at the end of it that if you don't reply to this letter or fulfill the terms that I've said, I will file a case in court without further reference to you. So it gives you a notice, adequate notice, if you are a respondent. So it's an important document.
Why? How should one respond to a demand letter?
It depends. It actually depends. If I owe you money, I will, and I don't have any evidence, any defense, I will say, sorry, just give me more time. Please don't sue me. I will respond.
So
and
I can respond and say,
yeah,
I see that you're actually asking for me to pay you in 14 days.
Yes,
I'm
but I
willing
don't
to
have the
pay,
money.
but I don't. Can we do 140 days?
Yes. You can always reply.
Okay.
If you're admitting liability and say, okay, sorry, my finances are not good. Just give me more time. I will honor this liability. In most of the cases, especially in monetary claims that are very huge, you're supposed to deny the liability. You deny the liability.
And so how do you respond? So you should
respond by denying the liability. Two, you can just ignore the demand letter without responding. That's an option you have.
Tukutane
mbele kotini, enda kotini, tukutane huko.
Why?
You can also write back, because these are factual matters. You can write back and deny and say, any suit that I don't owe you anything, your claim is misguided, and any suit that you intend to file will be vigorously defended. So you are pushing back on your position.
Even if you are in a position where you do, you are liable.
You see, the question of liability is not for you to determine. The question of liability is not for them to determine. It's for the courts to determine.
Okay,
so sometimes you push back. Yeah.
So, but if you so choose, if you're an honest person, and this matter that has been brought is actually So we had entered into a deal with you, Peter, and we had agreed that I'm going to pay you 100 million shillings, and you have met your end of the bargain. You have delivered everything. I've even signed receipts, right?
That's a straightforward claim.
And then I have not paid you. You write demanding, and I'm like, okay, yeah, Peter. But we've had this conversation last night at the club. We agreed, so I can actually write back and say, yeah, I know I owe you. I'm not gonna be able to clear it within this time. That is okay. But in a case where I feel, oh, Peter, acha tupelekane.
Yes, there's some persons who are really litigious. Litigious means even where the claim is
genuine,
an open and shut matter, they will still oppose that claim. That is why then the matter will go to court, and the judge will look at judge or magistrate will look at the evidence and then determine that you are liable by issuing a judgment against you. And that's what happens in more than 60-70% of the cases in our courts. Yeah, you will find that the court is then judging that dispute by determining that you are actually liable, something which you denied before. The problem with that is that some people where the claim is not disputed, you need to take legal advice, because there are some matters which you can incur a lot of costs. Like if you delay to pay a liability and then the matter goes to court, you will pay interest at 14% at court rates.
What?
14% of the claim that you owe. If you don't pay at the date when that claim arose, you will pay interest at 14%, and you will also pay costs. So sometimes when you deny a liability, you take that.
You're taking the risk.
You're taking the risk. Especially if my claim is straightforward, I will just file the case in court. You have denied. I will prosecute my claim, adduce evidence, then I get judgment. The judgment which I will get will legally award me 14% interest annually. So there are so many claims, especially claims against government. The claims that you see against government that run in billions of shillings, a large portion of the part of those claims are interest, which is charged at 14% per annum.
Yeah. So let's look at both sides. There's the one who then is making the claim.
Yes.
And then there's the one who's got to answer to, or in this case, answer or then deny. So what should you do? Let's start on one side, that you do have a case to make against somebody for whatever. So let's use the monetary issue here because it just seems to work.
Yes.
So somebody owes, or an institution owes for work done or a debt or whatever it may be, and this has not been paid. They've promised, they've given dates have passed, it's not happened. What course of action then should you actually take if, and maybe to some point you've understood that, times are difficult, whatever the case may be, but it's just not forthcoming. What should your first port of call be?
My advice always to anyone who is owed money by another person or company, a third party, it is always important to consult a lawyer. It is important to consult a lawyer for very many reasons. One is that you need to anchor that claim as a cause of action to be filed in court. Secondly, there's most of our claims, apart from constitutional claims, if I've been arrested and tortured by the police, that claim is not time barred. But if you owe me money or I've taken your land and then you don't go and sue me within certain timelines, then your claim can be extinguished.
What timelines are we talking about?
So there are very many. There is a law known as the Statute of Limitations, which for example, it says any claim based on contract. Any claim based on contract, you cannot claim it after 6 years. If I lend you money and you don't pay after 6 years, that claim is extinguished.
Okay.
So you, the person who lends the money, cannot then go to court
yes.
and demand this money to be paid.
Yes, if I have defamed you, there are also timelines for filing that suit. Yeah, so that it's important to always consult a lawyer for purposes of assessing whether your claim is legally viable. And secondly, for also preparing your claim. Sometimes you may not afford legal services, so you'll want to push this claim on your own.
Yeah,
you file the case in person. That is also allowed. You don't need a lawyer, even though it is always recommended that you get a lawyer for your claim to be fashioned properly. So that after you've passed that threshold, then you will file your case in court. You will file your case to the court which has jurisdiction. Jurisdiction means the power to determine that case. And remember that the court system is also structured in a certain way, so that you cannot just go to court. There are some matters which you may be required to go to a tribunal. For example, and here let me just be clear that there are 23 tribunals. And I can give just two examples of the tribunals. The Tax Appeals Tribunal. If Kenya Revenue Authority writes to you a demand letter, and then all of a sudden you go to your iTax, they have put a credit there of a tax liability, and you dispute it, you don't go to court. You go to the Tax Appeals Tribunal, which has been determined, set up by Parliament to determine this kind of disputes, and they're all under the judiciary. Secondly, if for example you are HIV positive and you are discriminated against in the workplace, or someone
disclosed
your status, etc., you go to the HIV Appeals Tribunal, which has been set then to examine that complaint and award you damages. So there are 23 tribunals. There are some matters then which you also don't file at the tribunal, at the tribunals. You can file them straight away at the magistrate's court. So at the magistrate's court, there's a limitation when it comes to jurisdiction. Claims which are more than 20 million, you don't file at the magistrate's court. Those ones you file at the High Court.
The High Court.
Yeah. If, for example, I've lent you 30 million, 40 million, That claim I'll file at the High Court.
Okay.
Because if I go to the Magistrates Court, their jurisdiction is limited to hearing claims above 20.
So up to 20 million
Up to 20
is the Magistrates
million,
Court.
the Chief Magistrates.
But if it's an employment-related issue...
If it's an employment-related issue...
Even if the claim is 100,000 shillings...
Yes. The Constitution of Kenya has established the Employment and Labour Relations Court as a specialized court to hear employment matters, labor-related issues. So if you have a matter there, if, for example, you've worked in a company for 6 years, you've been dismissed without notice, you file your case at the Employment and Labour Relations Court. If you have a land and environment case, if, for example, someone has taken your land, encroached on your land, you can file that case at the Magistrates Court, or you can also file it at the Land and Environment Court, depending on the nature of the value of your claim. Yeah, but ordinarily, the High Court is the one which has jurisdiction in nearly all matters except the ones which are reserved for the Land and Environment Court and the Employment and Labour Relations Court. But all the other matters, the magistrate, the High Court has jurisdiction. The law further says, there are some certain jurisdiction which unfortunately has not been invoked in Kenya, even though it is something which is there. For example, if you make someone pregnant, so that person is unmarried, there's a claim for damages.
Sorry?
There's a claim for damages for making a woman pregnant. That's a claim which you file
if the person is not your wife.
No, that's another claim. Another claim is where if you entice a married woman into an adulterous relationship, or a married man, you can also be sued for damages.
By who?
By the husband. Like if I'm the husband,
and by the spouse.
Yes, the spouse. The husband or the wife can sue. But when you sue you sue at the Magistrates Court.
So what are you suing? What is the case here? What are you being sued for? For enticing the spouse into an adulterous affair with you?
Yes, there's a cause of action known as enticement into an adulterous relationship.
But what if it was consensual?
Even if it is consensual,
you enticed each other.
The spouse is entitled to sue for damages at the Magistrates Court.
Interesting.
The court has jurisdiction.
Right. Yeah. Back to the other one, where this is an unmarried woman, and she falls pregnant by you. Who can sue you? The woman?
Yeah, the woman can sue.
And?
Yeah, it's a claim in damages. The father can also sue.
Claiming what?
Yeah, the father can sue damages. You made my daughter pregnant.
And now we cannot.
Yeah, without getting into
even if the daughter is an adult of sound mind.
The
daughter.
Yes, it's unfortunately a claim which is there in law.
So this is a 37-year-old person who has become pregnant. Their father can sue you.
Yes. It's one of those old draconian laws.
For real?
It's a common law. And unfortunately, Parliament still keeps it in our statute books, just like bigamy.
What's bigamy, by the
way? Bigamy is actually where you are married and you marry another person. So you commit a crime. You can be arrested and charged in court by the police, but is it really enforced? It's rarely enforced, that legislation. Yeah, so there are many causes of action in our statute books, which, especially in the law of crime, which enforcement is quite a problem.
We will go into those ones shortly. 28 minutes to 8. Peter Wanyama is our guest. He's an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, legal compliance specialist. He's here today on our Justice Thursday conversation, just learning about the law and how to deal with matters. If you have been sued, what do you do? All right? Or if you'd like to sue somebody, how do you go about it? How do you make sure that you win your case? Without thinking about you looking for the judge. Okay? We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's critical that people pay taxes. But then taxation has to have a limit. When you start overtaxing people beyond certain limit, then this is now we call robbery with violence.
We are all struggling, but we don't show. If you're not doing well, shame on you. But you have to say, I'm broke and I'm struggling. We are not okay until everybody is okay.
We are pretending to have political parties. Why don't we just be honest and we say these are the Luyas, these are the Kambas, these are the Kikuyus, and we find ourselves in Kenya.
You know, with politics and leadership, no matter what you do, there will always be a complaint. There will always be the assumption that you're either stealing or you're not doing things right. As a leader, don't fear. If you know you're doing the right thing, you've thought about it, you've got an expert advice, do it, then understand later.
This country, we don't need prayers. Prayers is between you and God. Good governance and thinkers who care about the country and not their stomach.
That's what we need. The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Cloudy, drizzly morning in Nairobi. It is currently 17 degrees. We'll see highs of 25 and lows of 16. It's cloudy at 17 in Nakuru, highs of 21, and light rain in Nyeri at 17 with highs of 23. It's cloudy, moving towards rain in Eldoret at 15 with highs of 20 and lows of 13. And we're looking at sunny conditions at 26 in Mombasa with highs of 31. Malindi at 27 is sunny with highs of 32, and at 20 Kisumu is sunny with highs of 25 and lows of 19. It's 17 and partly sunny in Kakamega with highs of 25, and we're looking into a mostly cloudy Kampala at 19 with highs of 27. It's cloudy at 26 in Dar es Salaam with highs of 31, and looking into a cloudy Johannesburg at 16, we'll see highs of 22. Mogadishu is partly sunny at 27 with highs of 32, while Addis Ababa at 16 is sunny, we'll see highs of 23. Lagos is cloudy, rather clear at 28 with highs of 34, and we'll see highs of 34 as well in a cloudy Kinshasa at 24.
Spice up your life.
Heavy build up on Wangari Maathai as well. So looking at the junction that comes in, all right, let's take a look at the Thika Superhighway. If you're coming in from the junction in from Outer Ring, there's traffic. There's also Outer Ring traffic that leads onto the Thika Superhighway. There's traffic on Kiambu Road as well as you come towards Muthaiga Square. And then as you head on towards Murang'a Road or Wangari Maathai, you will get stuck. Okay, because there's traffic that heads in from the start of Murang'a Road all the way to the Globe Cinema overpass, and that goes on towards Slip Road. There's some traffic coming in from Kirinyaga Road as well. Wangari Maathai is going to build up. It's connecting with all your avenues of parklands, and it's coming roundabout towards Chiromo. You will not be able to use Uhuru Highway, and traffic is now going back towards Westlands. So that's the mess that we're dealing with this morning. Folks who've come off of the Thika Superhighway have to find their way through Westlands and another route to try and get into the city. If you can avoid it, this would be your best bet this morning. Are you coming off Jogoo Road? There's traffic heading towards the Kamkunji Junction and then onto Haile Selassie. So the middle of the city this morning is an absolute eyesore. Avoid it if you can. Jogoo Road is also busy, and we're also looking at some traffic coming off of Langata Road, but we'll be able to handle this, at least for now. Okay, guys, shout out to what works. Let's talk to folks and see how we can keep things moving. And we'll talk on SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag The Situation Room.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.
Good morning with Wakili Peter Wanyama, legal compliance specialist. He's a specialist on many matters when it comes to constitution, devolution, and many other things. But today, we're in class. We are learning things, legal jargon and all. As you continue to tell us about the areas to watch out for, Wakili, there's something that you've mentioned a number of times here with cost, and we see it all the time.
Yes.
The case has been dismissed with cost, or cost shall be shared, or there'll be... What is this cost story?
Yeah, the cost issue usually accrues in litigation. Where there is any litigation, one of the things which the judge must address is who pays costs, the judge or magistrate. So if you have won, if it's a civil case and you have won it, the person who pays costs of your litigation is the other party, the one who has lost the case.
And cost here means what? Court fees?
Yeah, the cost is not court fees. Court fees, but court fees can be part of the cost.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is the other cost?
Yeah, so that if I have incurred money to file that litigation, to file that suit in court, I'm entitled to tabulate everything that I've incurred, and then the deputy registrar of the court, if it's a high court matter, if it's a magistrate's court matter, the court administrator, they will assess the costs which is due to me having won the case.
Okay, so let's say I took you to court.
Yeah.
Okay. I went through the whole process of, a demand letter. We went to court and I was demanding 10 million shillings from you.
Yes.
Okay. I came with my lawyer. You went with your lawyer. I lose the case. And then, so I'm not getting the 10 million shillings that I was demanding from you. You win the case.
You still pay costs.
So what is cost? I pay your lawyer?
Yeah, you will pay to the other party. The costs is not due to the lawyer. It's the costs which is due. Is the money which is due to the party that has won the case. So in every instance where a party has won the case, they are usually entitled to costs as well, paid by the party who has lost. So
I just want to get it right. Are we saying that the legal fees of the loser will be paid?
No, legal fees is different. Legal fees
that is different.
Legal fees is different from
who
costs.
you hire as your lawyer.
And costs, costs is not legal fees.
So what is cost?
Cost is the money that you have actually incurred to hire a lawyer, to file the case in court. For example, if you want to file a case in court which is more than 1 million shillings, you will pay 72,000 court filing fees.
Okay.
Every time your lawyer goes in court, there's some money that you're going to pay. Every time when they make an mention, even when they write a letter,
the lawyer,
there's a money which you pay your lawyer.
Right.
So at the end of the day, all that is attributed to
costs,
suit, which can then be summarized as costs of the suit, and the party that has lost the case then pays costs.
Okay. We looked at what to do on the side whereby you're looking for somebody to sort you out. Now, what happens on the side where you're defending? What should you actually do? Because I think a lot of people are met with fear when you actually receive that first thing, right? And somebody says, I'm going to go to court. I mean, my God, it's the scariest place on earth.
So what happens?
What do you do? What should you do?
Yeah, so what happens is that...
and sorry, Wakili, you have an intent to pay. Maybe circumstances don't allow you to. What should you do?
So usually what happens is that if you go to the magistrate's court, for example, if you issue a demand, they don't pay. You have given them 21 days. You can even give them another reminder of 14 days. They don't pay. Then you file your case at the magistrate's court, assuming you are claiming 5 or 10 million. You will file it at the magistrate's court. The magistrate's court will issue summons for you to enter appearance. So this summons will be served with you on you by the court, a person called the court process server, served on you. And then it usually says you're supposed to enter appearance within 15 days. So what most Kenyans do is to ignore the summons. Yet the legal framework has now developed. I can serve you by WhatsApp. Then I take that screenshot as evidence that I've served you. So it's very easy to serve. I can serve you by email. Previously, it was very difficult to serve. The law was very rigid. For example, in 1992, the President Moi could not be served by President Kibaki. So Kibaki went to court and told the court, but I can't reach the President Moi in an election petition. And then the legal framework was a bit it was not flexible. So the judges agreed and said, no, you have not served. So the case is dismissed. The petition is dismissed. So service is important, but as I said,
nowadays the service
has been liberalized. You can serve by WhatsApp. I can come to your office and you refuse service. I leave the documents on your desk, take a picture and go. So it is important not to ignore court summons whenever you have received summons. Because if you ignore and the other party can demonstrate service, then they will proceed with the case without you. So that if it's a money claim, you'll be embarrassed next time when you see auctioneers or at your door picking your household goods or taking away your car. So it's always important to make an appearance. Make an appearance. If it's a claim that you owe and you need more time, just make the appearance by accepting service, and then having a discussion with the other party. You can have a discussion and say, please give me more time, because the Kenyan legal system is flexible. It allows for parties to negotiate. You can owe me 10 million, but maybe you cannot pay because of certain economic reasons. Maybe your money has been held up somewhere. I can still give you time to pay. And we can settle without getting a judgment and against me and me being ordered to pay you cost. So the legal system is flexible. So the trick is never to ignore court summons. If you ignore, then you can be in very big trouble. Sometimes if you ignore, I can also serve you in the newspaper. Yeah. Service in the newspaper is allowed. I will go to court and get permission.
As long as you published it in the paper.
Yes, I'll tell the magistrate or the judge that I've attempted to look for you. You are very evasive. Please, can you give me an order to serve that person in a newspaper? That's why you will see, if you open every newspaper, usually on a weekday, you will see someone being served through the newspaper. Yeah.
The term "without prejudice," we see it a lot. In some of these, even in the demand letters. What does it mean?
Without prejudice is a legal term, one of those legalese that we put in letters. Without prejudice means that you want to have a conversation with the other party freely, but you don't want that conversation to be used as evidence in court. So you want to have a conversation. I owe you 10 million. Fine. Can I pay you 7 million? I only have 7 million. So you see, that's an admission that you're making. So that free conversation, you make it without prejudice to your rights. So that person cannot use that letter.
They cannot use that letter
as evidence in court, because you are having a free conversation
and
with
the only
intention.
The only thing that upholds that is because you've mentioned it in your conversation. If I say something to you and then I state that it is without prejudice, that means I've now claimed that position just because I've mentioned it.
You must actually put it in writing. You can't have a without prejudice conversation orally. You must put it in writing. Like if you write for me a demand letter saying, Wanyama, I owe you, you owe me 10 million. And then I write to you back and say, please, I will pay this money within 7 days. Can you give me time? And then I don't put without prejudice on that letter. I will have admitted that liability. But if I put without prejudice, I am reserving my rights to defend that.
You can
claim.
later deny.
Later on I say, but I'm just having a conversation with you with the hope that we can settle it. So I don't want that conversation to be used in a court of law. So we are having a factual conversation about your liability. So I'll put it on a without prejudice basis so that you don't use that communication against me. In a court of law.
Can you come after the fact to state without prejudice? If I have sent you communication, and can I then come back later and say this is all had without prejudice?
No. You will have admitted the liability. And once you admit, maybe as a plaintiff, that is all I needed for you to admit the liability. And then I tell the judge, this person has no defense to my claim. He even admitted the liability. Here is a letter that he wrote to me. So his defense is just a mere denial. Strike out his defense.
Small claims courts.
Yes.
Okay. So these are matters that are up to $1 million?
Yes. Small claims court have been established by Parliament. It's part of the subordinate courts. So they have been established by Parliament to hear matters for up to 1 million shillings. Anything more than 1 million, you don't file at the small claims court. It's an efficient way of handling matters. In small claims, you don't even need a lawyer. You will go there to the court system. the court, they will give you forms. You will fill up the forms. You will file that claim in court. You will get summons to issue to the opposite party. It's a court which does not the legal framework has been set in such a manner that you don't raise these technicalities.
It's oversimplified.
Yeah, it's the claim is simple. You came to my house, I gave you 250,000 for an emergency. You acknowledge the ability. By signing here, why are you denying it now?
Lipa bwana.
Yeah, lipa.
You received it, yeah.
Are you expected to follow this process of starting with a demand letter for small claims court?
Yeah, you can always write a demand letter. It's important to write a demand letter in all cases. Yeah, but once the matter is in the pipeline, the small claims system, they are obligated to determine it very quickly, so that you don't go there, then 2 years down the line, the case is still in court now.
Still pushing for 20.
Yeah, that's the magistrate's court now. It happens in the magistrate's court, but in the small claims court, you can play those tricks in the magistrate's court. And this is one of the tricks which people play. You serve me by WhatsApp. I have registered my number as Peter Wanyama. But my ID indicates Peter Manyonge Wanyama. Then you come and play tricks in court and say, this is not the same person.
It's not me.
You served someone else. And then in some instances, you can be served. And then you deny I was never served. I was never served. And then you wait when the judgment has been delivered. Then you come the following day. And then you now say, please, can you set aside this judgment? Because I was never served. That's a trick people play in litigation.
Right.
But in the small claims court,
it must
the room to maneuver.
Once it starts,
the room to maneuver and to play those tricks is not there. Yeah. So if you have a small claims matter, the best way is to just pay it up.
Settle these matters.
Pay it up, and that is the policy rationale of establishing the small claims court. Because you can imagine having a claim for 200,000, then it stays in court for 7 years.
It doesn't make sense.
We see very many cases where, especially when it comes to employment and labor relation matters, right? Yeah. Domestic workers cases.
Yes.
Which, even from the judges of the Employment and Labor Relations Court, they tell us those are very many that come to them. And people just don't know how to handle them. You find, you've been served, yes, via WhatsApp by someone who claims to be a lawyer representing so-and-so that you hired. You didn't even know that this was the person's name. You're wondering, so-and-so, who's that? I didn't know this was the person. How should people handle such cases? Because there are many now.
Yeah, these cases are not different from the other cases. They'll always follow the same pathway. But the cases are on the increase for the reason that it is a sector of the economy which most people have neglected. We look at maids, house helps, and domestic managers as nobodies.
As disposable.
Yet they have rights as employees. The Employment Act protects their rights so that they are entitled to reasonable pay which is not below the minimum wage. They are entitled to all the other benefits which accrue to an employee in a setting. But most of us, unfortunately, in our domestic settings, we don't follow. So when they get terminated, most of them now go to court or they get advice. When they get advice, then you will find that there's a resurgence of these cases. The cases are increasing because the employees, those domestic workers, their rights, they don't have trade unions to protect them. So that's the only way we can protect their rights. So when they come to me, I will look at the case. First of all, verify the identity, and it's important for you as the employer to also verify the identity of the person you're employing. Have an ID. So that you don't say that this person never worked for me. So we will have an identity card. We will verify that he worked for you. We will look at the law. He worked for you for more than 2 years without minimum pay. And then we look at the circumstances under which you terminated. We will deem it unfair. Then we will file a claim for damages, loss of pay, damages, etc. And then the court will assess and award some money. So it's always important to just follow. As the employer, it's important to the employer, in this case, the owner of the house. Please just follow the law. Follow the law when it comes to minimum.
What is law, Peter? So does it start from having a contract, a written contract? Is it important to have a written contract with everybody who works for you?
It is preferable to have a written contract. It is preferable to have a written contract, even though the employment relationship can be implied. It can be implied even if you don't have a written contract. It can still be implied. If that person worked for you, not as an independent contractor, because an independent contractor is different from an employee. Yeah. So if they have worked for you in the circumstances that show that they're actually employees, then you cannot run away from that obligation. The best way as an employer is to have a written contract, even though most of us don't have written contracts with domestic workers. But pay them also reasonably. Let them have all the rights which an employee has, like leave days, remit NHIF payment for them so that they can get a card.
Housing levy.
NSSF and housing levy. It's preferable you do that so that later on you are not found liable.
Do we find, I mean, every time we hear lawyers say the law is very clear and etc., that the Constitution the Constitution then is a supreme document through which all of these things that we essentially take to court then are held up against. And I know that maybe it would be difficult to say that courts will act in a certain way over time because cases are different. However, Peter, do we find that when it comes to constitutionality over an issue, or when it comes to the rights of an individual, will those be held up against or above anything else when it comes to these cases? For example, if somebody has brought a case against me, but I did not have an opportunity to defend myself or lay my claim or deny, it can be found that that was unconstitutional, and a judge may then grant me a stay, might be able to grant me reprieve because I didn't have an opportunity to defend myself. Is constitutionality and the rights of an individual upheld over and above anything else, regardless of what the case may be?
Yeah, that's right. You know, the courts apply the rules of natural justice. So that even if you are deemed to be the devil himself or herself, you must always be given an opportunity to be heard. So the question of denial of that opportunity to be heard elevates that matter to the realm of the constitutional rights, such that if you have never served me with pleadings, with the case, all I see is auctioneers coming out there. And it happens in some cases. I'm entitled to go to court and say, but I was never heard. So the moment the court hears that you are never served, and that means you are never heard, then they will set aside the proceedings and start afresh, because the right to be heard is so fundamental in our legal system, such that you must be heard. That is why a litigant, a plaintiff, person who is suing, is required to prove. He must prove that you are served, and he must prove that by filing a document known as an affidavit of service. Sometimes judges go to a very judges and magistrates, they go to a very extra length to give room for the defendant and to give latitude for the defendant in cases where they have not been served by demanding that the plaintiff proves that service. That is why for the plaintiff, you must be crystal clear that you actually served, and you'll be required to file an affidavit of service. And where you have not served, then the proceedings will always be set aside, and then you start afresh. Yeah. So service is very, very critical in our legal system. Service of court papers, very, very important.
It's a big thing.
Yeah, it's very important.
Okay. Many comments coming in here on that particular issue of somebody suing you because they got pregnant.
Yes.
By you. What would they be suing for? So this is not child support.
Yeah. You know, under our customs, under our customs, if you, for example, you make a lady pregnant and you're not married to that lady, there are some maybe cows that you are entitled to pay.
Yes.
You're supposed to pay.
Yes.
So if you don't pay, that claim is enforceable. You go to the magistrate's court and you sue. You've made someone pregnant. For example, if I am the father of the girl, I'm entitled to sue you. You've made my girl pregnant. You've not married the girl, and our customs allow
for some penalty.
Ordinarily some penalty. So I'll go to court, and the magistrate's court, and sue you for that. If, for example, you have not paid dowry, and our custom, you have stayed with my girl for more than 10 years, you have not paid dowry.
Sure.
I have made demands for dowry through the normal channels. You have not paid. I'm entitled to go to court, in the magistrate's court, and sue for the dowry that is due to me as the father of the girl. That's a claim which is allowable. Yes.
Peter Wanyama is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. He's been here on our Justice Thursday conversation. Today we chose, let's just go into the basics of just understanding the basics of law and how to deal with matters in court. Thank you very much, Wakili, for joining us. We'll invite you again soon for more of such conversations.
Thank you.
8 a.m. Time for the news.
Spice up your life.
Morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. The ODM party has protested a move by the UDA party to appoint public officers to party positions. ODM says the appointment of Kerry boss Anthony Moura to head its National Elections Board and KPLC chairperson James Devo to Internal Dispute Resolution Committee is a recipe for chaos. ODM also argues that the move is contrary to the Ethics and Integrity Act. In an meeting, ODM resolved to push for the resignation of the two from their offices or drop the offer by UDA. ODM says attempts by UDA to have Moura and KPLC board chair James Devo participate in politics will be unconstitutional. The Orange Democratic Movement Party will begin grassroots elections on April 27, 2024. The elections will be held in phases beginning in Kwale, Busia and Siaya counties. On April 29th, ODM will conduct its grassroots elections in Kajiado, Migori and Wajir counties. April 30th will mark the last day of the polls, with Kisii, Vihiga and Murang'a counties conducting the exercise. ODM Secretary General Edwin Tifuna said the dates for other counties will be announced later upon reviewing the outcome of the earlier exercise. Now, members of Parliament and members of the County Assembly have been urged to work together with Governor Kawira Mwangaza as she formally joins the UDA party alliance. Now, she was received by UDA Secretary General Cleophas Malala and Chairperson Cecily Mbarire at the Hustler Center in Nairobi. Mwangaza stated that she is ready to reconcile with Meru leadership and work with every leader. The Meru governor said she will be vying for the gubernatorial seat in the 2027 elections on a UDA party ticket. Mbarire, who is also the Embu governor, appealed to the Meru leaders to consider reconciliation for the benefit of Meru County. Cabinet Secretary for Environment Soipan Tuya has announced the revocation of all title deeds for lands located within gazetted forest due to irregular issuance. The CS spoke at Ololua Forest, part of the Ngong Hills Forest Station, to address the local community forest association's concerns about encroachment and irregular land allocations within gazetted forest. The event was attended by prominent officials including Principal Secretary for Forestry Gitonga Mugambi and former Kajiado Senator Peter Mosita. CS2 stated that the revocation is intended to correct discrepancies in which parcels of land were incorrectly granted titles despite being in the government's legal custody. Now, Walter Onchonga Mungare, popularly known as Nyambani, is no longer authorized to transact any business on behalf of the State Department of Foreign Affairs, where he served as the Director of Programs, Advocacy and Outreach. Foreign Affairs Principal Secretary Korir Singoi made the announcement via an internal memo marked as highly urgent. It was addressed to all Director Generals, heads of missions and departments within the Ministry of Diaspora and Foreign Affairs. Singoi subsequently urged the departmental heads to refrain from conducting any official business with Mungare. And the police in Mombasa are holding 8 suspected members of a criminal gang, including a 17-year-old minor, over a series of burglary and criminal attacks in the county. The suspects are believed to be part of a 30 machete-wielding gangs that attacked a woman before setting a business premises on fire in the Tugawe area of Kisumu. Residents say the gang raided Alice Nkirote's shop at around 2 a.m., leaving her nursing injuries on her head, ears and hands. The gang demanded cash, went on to tie her hands before dousing her in petrol and then set her business premises on fire. And new research from Kenya's tertiary institutions show that nearly 90% of young adults enrolled in Nairobi's universities and colleges have witnessed technology-facilitated gender-based violence, with 39% experiencing it firsthand. The rapid study was conducted by the Collaborative Center for Gender and Development in collaboration with the University of Nairobi's Women Economic Empowerment Hub and funded by the United Nations Populations Fund UNFPA. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Something with traffic in the city this morning. Let's take a look at what's coming off of Mombasa Road today as you get towards the city. As you get towards the junctions of Bunyala, and that's coming in also from Langata Road. So traffic is starting to build up. Uhuru Highway, the part that you can actually use today is bumper to bumper. It's going to connect with Haile Selassie at some point. It's also then going to connect with Valley Road. But there's no traffic coming in from the Chiromo side, and so that is crazy. Slip Road now is impassable, as is Kipande Road. Harithuku, well, okay, not so bad. But look at what's happening right here. That's coming in from Westlands Road. And we're also looking at Museum Hill. Hotel Boulevard, absolute mess. I don't even know how many lanes there are right now. And folks are trying to get off of the expressway. It's not working. Kipande is crazy. Boardwalk Residency, and you're looking at coming in, touching a little bit on Ojija Road. Ojija Road, forget it. If you're thinking right now about going towards Ojija Road, don't, because you will not be able to get off it, at least not any time before the end of traffic hour. So that whole area is absolutely jam-packed. Muranga Road, I know, guys, you're coming off a Thika Superhighway thinking you'll be in town real quick. You might want to go around. Think about stopping off at Juja Road, coming in on Juja Road, and then using Carrier Court, come through Ring Road, and then out to the other side of the city. That's the only thing that makes sense right about now. Let's keep an eye on things and see what happens. Shout out, guys. Let us know what you can use this morning.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
After 8, how are you doing? Welcome to the third hour of the Situation Room on this 4th day of April 2024. It's Eric and Ndu. CT is away today. CT Muga, he left me with a proverb. The proverbs for this week are from the Republic of the Senegal. It has a new president. His name is Faye. And the Prime Minister is Sonko.
Yeah.
The real Sonko is a Prime Minister in Senegal. The proverb is, if the dog is not at home, he barks not. If the dog is not at home, he barks not. What's your interpretation of this proverb?
Yeah, I mean, I just think about in my language as well. They say that a chicken who goes into a new yard will stand on one leg for some time. So you're not in your comfort zone. You can go and start shouting anyhow. Take a minute, first of all, and see where you are. But even when it's not your place, you're unlikely to make a lot of noise. You're likely to be on the listening side than the agitating side.
People have talked of even going to the very extremes. When you have visited a place, this is not your normal home, you're a visitor, you're unable to do the number 2.
Oh, really? For a while?
For a while.
Until you get comfortable.
Until you get comfortable.
Yeah.
Right? Even your body, your system
Everything
does not allow you to do that.
Yeah.
It's like,
hang on a minute.
Let's wait until we go back home. So we shall deal with these issues. Yep. A lot's happening in government. The headline today in the Standard: no pain, no end to pain, as doctors say big no to offer. Kenyans are bracing for more suffering after doctors and authorities failed to agree a day after state concessions shone a ray of hope on ending the strike. Yesterday, the government warned some of the demands are unattainable. And some of these demands are exactly like how much should the doctor interns be paid. CBA talks about, a doctor intern ending up taking home about 200,000 shillings plus. And the national government has said, Bwana, hey, we can't afford this. The highest we can go maybe is about 70-something thousand shillings. Doctors have said CBA or nothing. All right. This has now prompted the doctors' strike, which we are seeing now. Even the clinical officers saying they're getting into this strike, and other cadres also coming into the nurses are split in the middle between whether to join the strike or not. It's what's causing, for example, this conversation that's been brought up by the MP for Embakasi, East. Babu Owino. He has written a notice of motion to the clerk of the National Assembly saying, please be warned here that I intend to bring a motion for the censure of the Cabinet Secretary for Health, Susan Nakhumicha. Let me read that one. So the Honorable Babu Owino, Member of Parliament for Embakasi East constituency, has written to Samuel Njoroge, the clerk of the National Assembly, notice of motion, the removal of the Cabinet Secretary for Ministry of Health, Susan Nakhumicha. He says the grounds for removal are gross violation of the Constitution and incompetence. He says, as a result of the doctor's strike, a majority of Kenyans' right to life, as well as the right to the highest attainable standard of health, has been grossly violated. Since the strike began last month, scores of Kenyans have been unable to access medical care, and in some dire cases, some have even lost their lives. The CS has exhibited incompetence in that she failed to avert the doctor's strike, which has now entered its 3rd week. She has also failed to honor the doctor's collective bargaining agreement and has instead taken a hard line and is instead threatening the striking doctors with immediate sacking and replacement. The CS has further failed to appreciate the seriousness of the strike and has failed to provide a lasting solution to settle the demands of the medics, including hiring of interns, trainee doctors, and payment of salary arrears. So the MP says, I'll be moving this motion, seeking the resolution of the House to require His Excellency the President to dismiss the Cabinet Secretary from office. And says he has attached the necessary evidence to go with this particular notice of motion. This is one minister. There's also the issue of the other headline, again in the Standard: fat cats at center of fertilizer scam tried to kill a story. There's a story about fake fertilizer in the country.
Yes, there is. And the question is...
And there's another story here of the accident, and it's a headline in the Nation today, of a family that's mourning the death of 9 family members from the tragic road accident on Mombasa Road during Easter.
That in the 3 months that we've completed of 2024, that close to 50 people have died from road accidents. And so the question is, where then does the responsibility lie? All right. There seems that as we look at so many sectors in the country today, that so many things are going wrong, if you want to use that basic. And it just reminds me of one of the famous quotes in Hamlet that said, something is rotten in the state of Denmark, that one may smile and be a villain. There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in our philosophy. That beyond what we see as the physical manifestation, that there is something inherently wrong.
Something is not working.
Something is not working. And you smell it, and maybe you feel it, but those are just symptoms or signs that actually there's something that's not working. So where will you look and what will you say in terms of what the problem is? It cannot be that you look across sector and that across sector that there is something wrong, and not just something wrong, but something very, very wrong.
Yeah.
So take your pick. This is interesting because the National Council of Churches is now calling for the resignation of Health Cabinet Secretary Susan Nakhumicha for failing to avert the ongoing humanitarian crisis, health crisis in the country. Dr. Kanga says, if I was the Minister of Health by this time, either if one person dies in some countries because there is something wrong, it is either she fixes it or she steps out. It is very simple. They've gone on to also talk about the fact that they say, look, we cannot have a situation where fertilizer that is going to be applied to farms from which Kenyans will eat tomorrow then is fake. Who is the person who is in charge of this docket where this is happening under their watch? It's a no-brainer. Something like this happens that affects the very livelihoods of Kenyans. There should be no question about where you should be. You either fix it, that those who then were involved have a question to answer, or you step aside. Very simple. If we want to draw another parallel, 50 people cannot die from road accidents in 3 months in a country, and the question remains, what exactly is happening? I'll give you an example. Last year, there was a train accident that took place in Greece. People died before they started to investigate what happened, because it was clear that there was a fault. The Minister for Transport, sitting in his office in another city, wrote a letter of resignation. So you ask yourself the question, what responsibility do we take for things that go wrong? And it goes back to my question at the very beginning of this show today. What value do we place on life? And I'm not just talking life and death, that somebody will die. I'm talking about life, living today. What value do we place? How important do we take the responsibilities that we have been given, whether as ordinary citizens or those who've been given a position of leadership or governance? It cannot be that wherever you look, it's like you throw a stone, it's going to land on something. You throw a stone in Kenya today, it's going to land on a problem. Look at what's happening with education. Look at what's happening with health. People are dying because doctors cannot go to work. Doctors won't go to work. Why won't they go? There's been a problem. And I look at the health sector today and I say, you know what? People talk about Nakhumicha should step aside. She should do what? The problems did not start.
It's not Nakhumicha.
It's not her.
The genesis.
They did not start with her being in office. Are we looking at the genesis of this issue? What value do we place whereby the doctors come and they sign a CBA 2017 to 2021, and the very tenets and elements of that CBA you are unwilling, because I refuse to say incapable of, unwilling to live through? Unwilling. What kind of devil demonizes you to the point whereby 54 billion shillings that you budgeted to send children of this nation to school over 5 years you do not pay? Why?
There's something that's completely wrong.
There is a problem.
And we are not, we ought to get to a
stinks.
point where you have a national conversation. Like, let's say all pause, okay? Can we all address our truth? Because we've got to face the truth at some point. And this truth is just basically just knocking us from various angles, excuse me. But we are refusing to confront this truth. There's a truth that's completely hitting us in the face. When we see delays in the disbursement of money to counties, when we see delays in the disbursement of money for capitation to schools that's affecting education, when we see delays in the posting of intern doctors because there's no money that's going to be able to send the intern doctors, and even when they have been pushed, they say, you know what, we really can't afford. When we see all these things, there's something wrong. And then look at the other side. There's a project that's implemented by government that says, all right, let's support our farmers so that then our farmers can increase their yield. Okay, we are going to have a fertilizer subsidy. A fertilizer subsidy is basically saying that taxpayer money will come from the exchequer to pay for the price of fertilizer in the market, and then we'll only tell the farmer to pay this much. Right? The rest will come from the consolidated fund, Okoh, Mbele. Somebody goes and grabs that fertilizer and does whatever voodoo with it, that what ends up in the market, in the farm with the farmer, is not the fertilizer. Now, we can have very many arguments here. Oh, there's no fake fertilizer. This is nonsense. The Prime Cabinet Secretary's speech over the weekend clearly indicated that the government knows that there's something wrong with the fertilizer. Okay? So there's something wrong with the fertilizer. What is it? How can we allow people to do this? How can we allow people to bring in mafuta, or we are told it's fake mafuta? Oh, sugar is condemned. Sugar leaves a warehouse. Sugar goes to a warehouse. Sugar disappears from warehouse. Sugar ends up in people's cups, and people consume that sugar. It had been condemned, and we do not have anything. Something is wrong in this state. Something is rotten in this state of Denmark.
It is.
And we have to face it. We have to ask ourselves, what is it? We can remove Nakumisha today and bring somebody else tomorrow. We can remove Jogon and Dongo today and bring somebody else tomorrow. We can even remove William Ruto and bring somebody else tomorrow. But if we are not confronting what our problem is, we are not moving forward.
And look, if you want to look at the roots of the matter here, is that the degeneration of morals has gotten to the point whereby, imagine a world so skewed, a thinking so skewed, that the very thing that is going to feed a people to keep them alive is bastardized for somebody to then make money. And in some realm, that is okay.
It's okay.
It is far removed from any kind of normalcy, completely. That, because I do believe that fertilizer came into this country proper. But this is the deviance that we talk about, that somebody or a cabal of individuals decided, you know what, man, we can make this thing go a lot further, and we can charge the same money for it, but what we're going to do is going to open it up and mix it with whatever else we need to mix it with, and then repackage it and get maybe triple, quadruple times the yield, sell it for the same money, and take that money and put it in our pockets. And we don't care what happens after that.
Imagine.
That's the problem.
Imagine.
That's the issue.
And walk around and sleep easy and look at our children and say, Sasa Baba, and you're looking at this child, your child, knowing what you've done to other people's children.
And then the people who shared part of the spoils have the gumption to be able to deny and say, actually, there's nothing like that.
No, there's nothing like ati fake fertilizer, nothing. Edible oil, you guys are just misreading this thing. There was no edible oil scandal. Okay, sour. Okay, so there was no edible oil scandal. Okay, what happened? This sugar thing that you guys are, no, that sugar, it was not mercury. It was okay. So sugar, fertilizer. No, there's no fake fertilizer. Okay. So we agree. Okay. So what happened to over 600 people who died in Shakahola? We are. Okay. So what's happening to the very, very many people who are being killed in the North Rift? We are.
We're dealing with it. No problem. We're dealing with it. Okay.
What is happening to our children in school?
I said I'll give you the example. Today is Thursday. Right now, as we speak, hundreds of thousands of children are traversing the country. They are leaving school. They are going back home. They've closed school. Dr. Belio Kipsang told us that by the time this week is over, which is tomorrow, that the money that they said was going to be paid to schools in order to have them will be with schools today. Eric, it is the character of the problem is the same. The character of the problem is the same. Whether you're looking at health and you cannot uphold your word and make sure that doctors are compensated at the very least, whereby you cannot say that nurses or clinical officers are compensated so that you can actually carry the health burden and deliver this health service to them. The character of the problem is the same. Whereby you say we will send money to schools, character, problem, the same. And you actually don't do it. And you say, actually, no, the money that we are sending you is not for anything else apart from tuition. Okay, that's great. So what you're saying is that even the tuition, the very basic teaching that you should be giving to these children, you deem it not important enough to release this money so that it can be sent to school. How do you expect that they are learning? Under what situation do you think that these children are learning? And then we wonder what happens in the future, whereby we're not able to deliver because of the foundation that we've given in the character, problem the same. That is why you can open up a bag of fertilizer, mix it with whatever else you want to mix it with, and deliver it to the market. That's why you can do that. That's why people can be killed and 50 schools be closed in the North Rift. 50 schools closed, children not going to school because there's a bandit problem, and we sit and we look at it for 30 years and we say, we're working on it. Character,
this time
problem,
we'll deal with
the
it.
same. That's why people whose fundamental right to have a piece of documentation that allows them to travel to another country, it is their right, allows them to travel to another country for 9 months, the problem has been there. Character, problem, the same. Take a stone, throw it, it lands.
Anywhere. In this health crisis that we are seeing unfolding in the country, where we do not have doctors, right? We even saw Seth Panyako yesterday, the Secretary General of the Nurses Union, saying and reminding us that, you know what, if you go to a dispensary, you're not going to find a doctor. You're not supposed to find a doctor at a dispensary. You'll find a nurse. If you go to a health center, you're not supposed to find a doctor. You'll find a nurse and a clinical officer. And then once you start going to now level 3s, 4s, that's when you find doctors. The entire system where you find doctors, the doctors are on strike. The clinical officers are on strike. The nurses, some of them are threatening to go on strike. So the public health system is not functioning as it should. So it pushes people towards the private health sector. We had the chairman of the Rural and Urban Private Health Association yesterday here telling us, you know what, we are saying no NHIF, come with cash. But we also understand that this is a population that has a problem raising money to access healthcare. We understand. What we are seeing now is people coming to hospital. They don't have money. Yes, we are working. We have opened our doors. We are running facilities. Over 47% of health in this country is provided by private and faith-based providers. All those are now receiving everybody who's going to hospital. But because you don't have NHIF, you're not going to be able to access that service. They're not accepting anything that is called NHIF. You have to go with cash. There's a problem. Something is rotten in the state of Denmark. And we've got to ask ourselves, what is it? What is it? We must have a national conversation and ask ourselves, what is it? And so how shall we solve it? And not start just keep, slapping things here and there, slap this, slap that, or remove Inspector General of Police, remove the police commander here, remove minister here, remove Director General of Health there, remove treasury person there. Those things, you're just playing games, but the rot is still there. We are still in the same pigsty.
It is. And I think this is the thing that I often hear, that people we will ask the question, then we keep talking about the same problem, we keep talking about it, and that's why I bring up the issue of a character of a problem, because a conversation does two things for you. One, it allows you to go to the next point where you keep discussing this issue to the point where somebody is uncomfortable and decides, okay, well, we then are going to change, or somebody will stand up and do something about it. That's why you cannot but talk about these things. The desire for anybody who does wrong and benefits from wrong, you know what the desire is? Is to keep it quiet.
Yes.
And that you do not talk about it. And that you do not make them uncomfortable with what is happening. So you saying, well, I'm going to throw up my arms in some kind of, giving upness, if that's a word, let's just make it up for today. That's actually the desire. So that somebody can continue doing the wrong thing, can continue making money where they shouldn't be, can continue with bad manners because they know nobody's going to talk about it. That's what they want. They want it in secrecy. They want you not to talk about it. They want you not to raise the issues. They want you not to whine and complain on a daily basis so that they can continue doing what they're doing with nobody asking questions.
And we have all accepted this is the way, this is the norm, right? That's why everybody, each one of us knows somebody who is at least has political ambition, is seeking office, public office, is seeking to work in government. What is the main motivation for very many people who are seeking to work in public service? To steal.
To steal. Not to get rich,
just
No,
go-
but not to see you.
it's to seek opportunity. We call it opportunity, all right? So if you know that so and so has now been appointed as cabinet secretary and they're your pal, and now you know they can now distribute some jobs here and there, is you get this opportunity at our idea what we earn.
You
all
have a way in.
See it, you earn the salary, and then now using that salary you shall earn an honest living and you do your job. No. It's an opportunity. What shall you do with the opportunity that you get? In other words, how much shall you steal from where you're working? This is what's happening in all our spaces. Why is it so? Why? At what point do we become these people? At what point do we become the people who actually can sit and say, no. We have to find a way of carrying a nice PR story so that we say that the fertilizer is okay.
Yeah, see, there's no problem.
How can we actually sit and say, you know what, let's no, it's not so bad. So our children, yes, grade 7, you see, grade 7, they went to school, they were not teachers, but we've sent teachers now. Grade 7 now they're going to grade 8, and grade 9, we are having the conversation whether we should have grade 9 in the comprehensive school or in the secondary school is a money-driven conversation. It is not about the children. It's okay. So we want these children to be in a secondary school so that then they can be paying school fees here, or the capitation comes onto this side, or they stay here. So those are the conversations I highly suspect. It's not that these children now at this age of grade 9, it would be best if they start being taught by a secondary school teacher. It's not. We are people who have just gotten to a point where we are just rotten, and we must face this as a country. We must face it and say, this is a problem in our health. This is a problem in our public finance management. This is a problem in our public management of our public affairs. And it comes back to us. This is how we are managing ourselves as a people. What are we doing to ourselves?
Absolutely.
What is this?
It has to be. Because, look, to do a comparison, I think, is a high injustice to an issue, because there have been, and we are seeing live examples of where people have tried to speak up, or in some cases have not spoken up, have not had a boiling, persistent conversation about what's happening, and countries have been thrown into the abyss of degradation.
Yep. We have basically decided that mediocrity will be our most minimum requirement. Are you mediocre? Fine, you're the
Wonderful.
best. You're now, at least
Are you
now
sitting on the
you
fence?
qualify.
Okay, yeah.
You qualify. It starts with that. That's how we see even projects. You're going to tell us about traffic just now. You will tell us about what's happening. Many people are stuck on the road, are going to be stuck on the road for very many hours because there's no sufficient road signage that tells them we have closed part of the road. You posy.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
This is one of the hottest show that we can ever miss any morning, and it's a show that really gives a real situation in the Situation Room.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you guys so much. Nice meeting you. Even beautiful in person more than in photos.
Say that again.
Character is like pregnancy, you cannot hide it. You know, people hiding here and there, you know, but after 2, 3 months, 5 months, now you see. So that is why the attitude that you are showing us, you're pregnant.
It's like what my grandmother would say, you cannot pickpocket a naked man.
How's that? It's communal, isn't it?
No comment.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
The weather.
Nairobi this morning, it is 17. We'll see highs of 23 and lows of 16. It's 17 and cloudy in Nakuru, highs of 21 and highs of 24. In a rainy Nyeri this morning at 17. It's cloudy at 15 in Eldoret with highs of 21. Mombasa is cloudy at 27. We'll see highs of 31 and we'll see highs of 32 in a mostly sunny Malindi at 27. It's 21 and sunny in Kisumu with highs of 26, and at 19 in Kakamega we'll see highs of 26 and lows of 17. Kampala is cloudy after the rain with highs of 27 and mostly cloudy at 26 in Dar es Salaam with highs of 30. It's 16 and cloudy in Johannesburg with highs of 22, while Mogadishu is at 30. We'll see highs of 33 and highs of 23 in a sunny Addis Ababa. It's 28 and clear in Lagos, going to highs of 34, and in Kinshasa at 23, we'll see highs of 34.
Spice up your life.
Yeah, it's a nightmare of epic proportions this morning as you're coming into the CBD. If you're going to use Moy Avenue and then getting into the city, yeah, not looking very nice. Wow. Okay. So Muranga Road is a mess. It's been one all morning. And we're also looking at what's coming in on Wangari Maathai. No.
Okay, so let's just say this. You're coming from Westlands and you want to go into town. You want to go into Kenyatta Avenue. You will not access Uhuru Highway directly, okay? So just find another way and don't try to go towards Kipande Road. Please go into Arboretum. Find another way.
You'd rather even go into Arboretum and then go through Hurlingham?
Yes.
And then come through Haile Selassie?
Haile Selassie, Kenyatta Avenue into town. Because look at that mess. Museum Hill interchange is one standstill of a road. Is there any road sign that you see where you are, where Kenha is saying, please, road blocked ahead, use alternative road? If you're on Thika Road, Muranga Road, all the way from Pangani into Ngara, coming towards Globe Cinema roundabout, and you're stuck, can you see any signage that's telling you, we have blocked the road somewhere ahead, please use alternative or look for alternative? If you're coming from Parklands or Westlands and you're trying to get into Kipande Road, this is the mediocrity we're talking about.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Our conversation this morning. There are very many things that are happening in the country. Doctors are on strike. Okay, we've seen that. There's an ongoing conversation between doctors and the government. Government saying, "Bwana, we can't afford. Bwana, we can't afford to send, these trainee doctors to." Okay, it is a law that says you will go to medical school. You will study a Bachelor of Medicine and Surgery for 6 years. You will then go for internship for a whole year before we license you to practice as a doctor in this country. Even if you go and study in India or whatever, come back here, you must go through this so that we know that you're a doctor. Right?
Yes.
The government has known this for many years. The government signed a CBA in 2013 and said we shall be paying interns this much. Now suddenly the government says, but now we can't afford. These are interns. Why are we paying interns 120,000? 200? No, we can't pay interns that much. Same government. Same government is telling us there's fake fertilizer, there's no fake fertilizer. We don't know whether there's fake or not fake fertilizer. We have issues. Same government has not released money to NHIF to go and support the Linda Mama, the Nua Wazee, all those programs for health. So NHIF not being able to meet its obligations with hospitals now saying no more NHIF from us. Same government, schools are closing, has not sent money for capitation. For how many terms now?
This is
Keep
now
just sending Nunueni Mboga Gorogoro Mbili, Nunueni Maharagwe Gorogoro Mbili. Tutaona next week.
By the time you're closing, that time is now. By the time you're closing, you would have sent money. That time is now. I'm interested. Have schools received money? I know the answer.
No. Schools will tell you they received money. But how much? Okay? It's how much. Against what need? This is the budgetary allocation for capitation for schools per term. There's a formula. You shall send a bulk of it on first term and then second and third term. Have you met that threshold? No, you have not. What does that mean to the education of our children?
Remember that capitation stood at 22,475 thereabouts.
But because
for the last 1 year, and some, you've been sending 17,000.
Yeah.
The CS now said at the beginning of this year, in fact, that 5,000, we'll start giving it back to you because, we understand, whatever. We'll start giving it back to you so that capitation essentially will go back to 22,000. Huh? Sorry?
Because Treasury says, we can't afford, we can't afford. We are not able to afford. What can we or can we not afford? So we are looking for printers because our passports or our IDs. So we are looking for because you can't process logbooks and driving. What are those things called? Number plates. So we are looking for. What is wrong with this country? Look at this. Ednah, just show this picture, this map of what's happening in Nairobi this morning. This is the chaos on our roads this morning. And this is just part of the city. What you're seeing there is a Museum Hill roundabout. Red means traffic snarl up, okay? That's a Museum Hill roundabout. People who are coming from Westlands heading in towards town, they cannot access it because once they get to the boulevard, they are directed into Harithuku Road, get into KBC, go into Central Police Station, then you'll get into Slip Road. You see that red on Slip Road? That's because you must go into Globe Cinema roundabout. You're coming from Westlands. You want to go to Nyayo House. You want to go to Mombasa. You want to go, if you're not on the expressway, you're down there.
Yeah.
You must go to Globe Cinema roundabout.
Yeah.
That's how you proceed. You're coming from Thika Road, Muranga Road, Kiambu Road. You are on Muranga Road at Ngara. You must get into the Globe Cinema roundabout. You're coming from Westlands, Parklands. You must use Kipande Road. You must get into Globe roundabout. All this because there's an ongoing construction of an underpass crossing from University of Nairobi hostels into the University of Nairobi
main campus.
That is a construction that's going on. It's okay. However, is there sufficient warning and signage that's been given to motorists so that you know to think ahead?
No.
This is a manifestation of the problem that we have in this country. We have accepted mediocrity as the normal thing to do.
Yeah, that you will say that we'll give a notice of 5 days before and we'll tell you that this is going to happen for the next 10 days. Now, we are all going to enter into these murky waters and we'll just start digging the road, okay? Yeah. Now, how you will get to where you're going, if you woke up in the morning and you didn't see a sign and you just kept going until you get to the place where the road ends, that's your problem.
Yep.
We're doing what? We're digging the what culvert. That's when we finish, we finish.
Yeah.
When we leave, we leave. Whatever you need to do to figure out whatever you're doing, you figure it out. Do you see when I talk about the character of the problem being the same? It's the same thing. There's no fake fertilizer, but you who bought a bag of something that you don't even know what it is, guess what? Put it on your farm. If you planted maize and you get avocados, that's your problem. That's your problem.
Shauriako.
Yeah, wherever you're gonna land, where you're coming from, then okay, we'll deal with it when we get there. Okay, doctors have gone on strike. If you happen to, if
you fall sick, you go to a hospital.
People who don't have food to eat have paid NHIF. Then now you have a card, you go to hospital. You cannot
use it.
It's okay.
Go sell your cards.
Yeah, go sell the avocado that you got when you planted maize. Essentially, is what you're saying. This is the problem, that it's the mediocrity, it's the bad manners. When you smell something that stinks, Eric, something stinks. What does that mean? There is something that has gone bad.
Yep.
It is rotten.
Yep.
What do you do with a rotten thing? You cut it out or you take it and you throw it away. You cannot make something that is rotten good, because the rotten thing, guess what? It rots other things.
Yep.
And the rotting just continues. And that's what we are saying, that there is a problem. What do you do with a problem?
What's our problem? How do we deal with it? Let's hear from you. 0719 012 600. Something is rotten in the state of Denmark. What is it? What are we dealing with? Because, we keep talking about it. This and the other. Can we confront it? Can we face it? Can we face it? Can we deal with it? Can we start from the very, very, very basic and the very beginning? If you know it's your brother, it's your uncle, it's your father, it's your cousin, and you know very well that they're involved in the importation of fertilizer, and maybe they could have played this dirty game, or they're involved in the COVID billionaires and just came and went, or they were involved in any other of these other big scandals, or edible oil, mafuta ilikuja, mafuta ilikuwa imechanganywa na nini, oh, did we eat it, did we not, and we just these are the ones who are now making watu unajua wako kwa serikali, my friend, wamenunua mashamba, they wanakula. We are just sitting there and we are looking for that opportunity to get in there so we can do the same thing. We replace all these guys, we replace with whoever we replace. We are likely to get a high percentage of the people who are same as those ones that we've kicked out.
Kaisha says something, and he says we mischaracterize the problem. That the problem is that government or those in positions are budgeting for things whereby there is no money. So that's the problem. That's one of the issues.
That's a manifestation of the problem.
In what world do you start to budget for an entire nation knowing full well that I don't have money? Is that not an issue?
And you don't even say.
Don't say.
And in fact, every year you're increasing that budgetary allocation, that the amount that you want to spend, by several hundred billions of shillings.
That's a problem. It's an issue.
The other day we had the chairperson of the SRC here. 47% of ordinary revenue of taxes raised in this country is paying salaries. Okay? We have also heard from the president of this republic. 67% of taxes raised in this country is paying debt. Percent means 100. 67 plus 47 is what?
67 plus 47 is 110.
114.
114.
That math is not mathing.
You can't have 114 over 100.
It means that we are borrowing to pay debt, or we are borrowing to pay salaries, or both.
And may I remind you,
and this is just two things,
that even the thing that you borrowed for, I'm telling you, Eric, if you took 100 billion shillings today and scattered it in Kenya, something will move. You will see it. If there's a project, something, there's a project, 100 billion. Okay, sawa. 100 billion.
100 B.
You pour it somewhere. We will see.
We have seen. If you look at the expressway, that bill is around 100 billion shillings. You can see that monstrosity of the thing from Mulolongo all the way. Watch at the downside, the up one. The down one, that's a different story altogether. And Kipchumba has to tell us. He told us it's 3 billion shillings. It's much better. It's much cheaper. Guys have still dug up the road. Sharon in Wasingishu, good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
How are you?
I am fine, thank you. How about you?
We are okay under the circumstances.
Okay.
What is the problem in the country?
I think, first of all, the type of leaders we elect into office. I have not heard the president say anything about this mess that's going on. He's just busy with other things. He should have been the first person to mention or even put his weight somewhere. So I think, and also we have the chapter 6 of the constitution. We don't follow that when we are electing our leaders. We keep recycling the same people who are bringing the same problems. I think if we had more competent leaders and also professionals. I don't know if Nakumincha is a doctor. Is she?
She is not.
She's
not a medical doctor.
Yeah, you see, if she was a doctor, maybe she'd feel the plight of our people. So
we had a doctor, I'll remind you, Sharon, we had a doctor as the Minister for Health, and doctors went on strike.
Anyway, well, that's an isolated case. But I think if we have professionals that are professionals in line with the doctors that they're in, so they understand the plight of their fellow colleagues. That might help. But still, I think it's not wrong to say that she resigns. Because people are getting comfortable. In Kenya, people get away with a lot of atrocities and that's not the right word. What do you call incompetency? When you're not doing your job, people get someone is a minister, they're getting paid to do that job, but they're not doing it. People are suffering. And it's not just in a docket. In all the dockets, look at the Ministry of Sports the other time. Athletes were flying in third class. Well, the ones who are not going to run. So you see.
Yeah, thank you, Sharon.
And then corruption, that's another factor.
Thank you, Sharon. Let's hear from Karaoke in Nakuru. Karaoke, good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Very well, thanks. How are you?
Fine, thanks.
I'm also fine. It's a long time since we engaged in talk. Remember?
Very long, yes. Karibu sana.
I'm very interested. I'm very much interested in whatever you are talking about, the conversation, the agenda that you're having, especially of the health sector. Remember, sometimes back around 3 or 4 years, I talked about this issue, and I told you, and I said, if at all not talking about the God himself, our second God, and especially the layman, the hustler, the common mwananchi, is the doctor.
Yep.
Nobody does not seek the doctor's advice or something to do with the healing, isn't it? And so therefore, ever since these guys started going to the street, I think as layman or hustler nation, let me talk about that. We could have gone even to the street before as they gave that warning. Because today, so to speak, in fact, we as the hustler nation, where are we going to take our children if at all they are sick? Because we cannot afford the private hospital. What do you expect us to do? So my agitation to Kenyans is that don't wait anymore. Let's come out to defend this, our second God. Because if we are not going to do that, the country is going to get itself into a very deep trouble in terms of the health sector. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you, Kariuki. Thank you very much. Cedric in Bomet.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, Cedric.
Yeah, actually I moved from Bomet. I'm currently in Mwingi.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so my contribution this morning is this. We were here, I remember, not long before I used to contribute, I used to say this, that whatever we have here as a country, the total mess. This is just an architecture of His Excellency the President. He knew what he was doing, appointing all these incompetent people into the places of power. And of course he wanted to usurp all the powers into himself so that he could be the one pulling the shot. But remember, he's not a superhuman. And therefore, all these people are not put there to perform. Let's just agree that way. They're not put there to perform. They are put there so that they could be, manipulated by just some back buttons, do this, do that. And that's why we're saying this. We are having total mess. Look at our roads, what's happening in our roads. Look at the health sector, what's happening in the agriculture sector.
How do we address our problem? We have a problem. How do we address it?
Yes. Let me go to that point now. We can address it by saying this. Let us come out in large numbers. Let's not wait for any initiative from politicians. Let's organize ourselves, mobilize our citizens. Let's come out into the roads. Let us do the proper mandamano. We kick these people out of power because there's no one who seems to care anymore. Let us come out in large numbers and let at least fake middle class get out of their, out of their shells. Stop pretending that they can do it by themselves. Now we know that they can't do anything. Let's come out. We are all in one basket. Let's come out and defend our country.
Thank you, Cedric. Christopher in Mombasa, hello.
Hello, how are you?
Very well.
Well, thanks.
I know there's a problem. We keep on changing leaders every day.
Yep.
But below the leaders, there are these people who are called technocrats. They still stay in the same position. And they know what the ministry is doing from front end to back end. We have different state corporations with the same positions. If it, let's say, an organization like KRA has ICT officers. What if we swap these ICT officers from KRA to a different state corporation, at least have a fresh idea from one state corporation to another? If somebody sticks to the same position for 7, 12 years, hiyo ni wizi tu itafanyika hapo.
I hear you, Christopher. Thank you very much. Let's hear from Nelson in Mombasa. Hello.
Yes, how are you?
Very well.
Good morning.
And how is Ndu?
Very well.
Yeah, now we have an elephant in the room that we have to address.
What's that elephant?
And then I can hear, some people complaining that maybe the head of state is not commenting on the issue. But the thing is, he should not comment because he has put people there who are... Remember, at first we were told these people are meant to be technocrats. So they are supposed to understand the job that they have been given. Because they would be coming from that school of thought. Now that whoever is there, the CS and the entire group, in the ministry should be able now to sort out the mess that we are in, and not just shifting blames. Like now you can't have an agreement that I'm going to pay. I'll engage you to do a small job, maybe just making my flower bed for 500 shillings. Then at the point of engagement, now I tell you, no, you see, you're going to do this job, but I'll pay you 200 shillings. Well, the agreement was already there. It will not be fair. So for the interns, I would think they should go in the agreement way. And then for these ones that are the other clinical officers and the doctors, they have their issues just addressed, because that's the easiest way. They are not actually being confrontational for the sake of it. Mtoto akililia kama analilia kalamu ya kwenda shule, don't postpone, just address. Mwambie utapata kalamu mbili, utapata moja.
Sawa. Thank you,
But now if
Nelson.
you're getting one, yes, that should be what you need. Now you're not even addressing the issue, so where are we?
Asante. Mohammed in Mwakijembe.
Yes, waungwana, salamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, kaka, ujambo?
Nimefurahia sana kuwasikiza na mjadala moto.
Value systems, I'm sure.
Mimi nataka kuchangia kiwango cha uwezo wangu na ufahamu wangu. I've been hearing Madam Du uttering the word character several times, maybe, if I'm not wrong, maybe 50 times from the moment he was talking. Character. Au ni uongo, Madam Du?
Ni ukweli.
Ukweli. Sasa mimi nitakuuliza swali moja jepesi, mnisaidie. Literacy rate ya kusoma na kuandika Kenya hii tuko percent gani?
Over 80.
Over 80. Very good. Thank you, sir. Sasa let me turn the coin on the other side. Illiteracy rate ya kusema na kutenda tuko percent gani?
Ya kusema na kutenda?
Yes, sir.
Tuambie.
It's obvious, mnajua. Hilo mazungumzo ya kila siku, discussion, conversation ya SpiceFM, every day, day in, day out, issue ni mambo ya kutokuwa na maadili mema. Ndio nachangia hiyo tatizo yote tuko nayo, si Kenya, ulimwengu mzima. Now to mention something very interesting, just last month, if I'm not wrong, I read something that in the US, you have to be financially literate to graduate. Because of problem, people graduate, they're professionals, but they don't know how to manage their finances. So kama vile sisi hapa tulikuwa na graduate paka usome habari ya AIDS, graduate, au kuna very crucial, very important subject you have to go through so that you can graduate. Sasa Amerika wakasema hii matatizo tuko nayo kifinance, lazima mtu akigraduate lazima awe literate kwa upande wa finance. Kitu nimeshangaa, after that maybe by a month or two, Kenya nao pia wanaanza kusema lazima kuwe na financial literacy, manake saving culture, sijui watu wakiretire. Ulisikia kitu kama hiyo Latiff? Sasa kwa nini sisi tuna copy homegrown solution kama za Mohammed zinakataliwa, hazishereheshwi, sijui kama pia media wamekuwa captured, I don't know. Lakini every day, na you never one day mention kuwa kuna mzee mwingine aliongea kuhusu hii kitu, lazima tulitatue. Though it's a long term, kama nilipo kwa mfano last time, huwezi kula githeri kwa kuweka maji ya moto. Nescafe instant unaweza. Kuelimisha mtoto kutoka nyumbani mdogo mpaka akuwe daktari, akuwe lawyer, akuwe profession yote ile anapenda, tunaweza kusubiria hiyo na kustahimili mpaka anaiva. Kwenye upande wa karakta hatuwezi pia kuleta elimu ya kuweza kuwawezesha hawa watoto kadri wanavyokuwa, hiyo maadili yao inajengeka, inakuwa vizuri. Na hii issue si hapa Kenya, it's a global catastrophe.
That's the point that we are raising this morning, Mohammed. That's why we're saying that there's a problem. We've got to confront this problem. If problem is a broken down system, if it's our values, can we identify and all agree that something is wrong with our value system? Can we start addressing this value system and go with it, and how do we deal with it? Thank you, Mohammed.
Sikiza basi kidogo, sorry Mr. Latiff. Kuna kitu kwa nataka kuendelea hapo. Kuna msemo unasema, when you lose money you lose nothing. When you lose health you lose something. But when you lose character you lose everything. Indeed. Now see, globally we have lost character. Hata climate change hii inaleta balaa kila mahali. We are losing everything because of character.
That's true. Mohammed,
kwa hivyo hiyo ndio mchango wangu wa leo.
Asante sana. As you conclude, many comments on YouTube.
Yeah, quite a lot of them this morning. Stephen Ray says the system is broken from the leadership down the scale. The question is, we can talk about this, but then what happens? Another issue will rise, and then we discuss again, and then keep quiet. We shouldn't keep quiet. We shouldn't have the need to have this conversation. We should take action by demanding and electing the correct people with ideas, not tribe or party, but we need to take pride in ourselves and country. The most unfortunate thing is that we continue to talk about the same things over year in, year out, without anything being done, and this is said by government. The main issue stems right at our families, our homes. Once all of us choose to fix our families, maybe in 10 or 20 years to come, things will change. The problem is more fundamental than the people in the offices. The ideology and the pursuit of political office is the new rich. Change will only begin with us as individuals and the choices that we make. I mean, it goes on and on and on. But one thing is clear. Everybody agrees that there's something wrong.
Iko shida. We must start from that point. Iko shida. And point to as many places as we want to point. But we must address what our problem is. We keep replacing people after every 5 years and keep saying, oh, it's the same problem. Then the problem goes deeper than that.
Yes.
It cannot be that it's all because of our partner. No way. Anyway, keep it here for more conversations. In the next hour, we talk about the situation in Sudan, Khartoum, Sudan, 9 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Nurses have maintained that they are on duty and will not join the ongoing strike by doctors and clinicians. The Kenya National Union of Nurses Secretary General Seth Panyako says the nurses will not give in to pressure to down their tools because the government has already shown goodwill by engaging them concerning their grievances. The nurses want the government to address issues including signing of the collective bargaining agreement, interns posting and stipend payment. Panyako said the issues are pertinent and need immediate action, but the nurses are satisfied with the ongoing negotiations with the government. The Communications Authority of Kenya has published the 4th edition of the Programming Code for Broadcasting Services. According to the new code, advertisements will not exceed 10 minutes for a 30-minute broadcast, and the use of breaking news by advertisers will be banned. Live broadcast of ongoing hostage hijackings and kidnappings will also be restricted in a bid to prioritize victim safety. The code goes further to stipulate that unplanned or surprise interviews will be banned. It also states that to safeguard the rights of children, TV programs featuring violence as their central theme will not be allowed to air. Also, the ban on advertising tobacco products remains in place unless for educational purposes. And on election coverage, media houses will be required to apply consistent rates for airtime allocated to politicians and political candidates. The Constitutional Court in Uganda has nullified 4 sections of the Anti-Homosexuality Act of 2023. The judgment delivered by a panel of 5 judges Wednesday said sections 33(2)(c), 9(11)(2)(d) and 14 of the said act contravened the Constitution of Uganda 1995. The nullified sections had criminalized the letting of premises for use for homosexual purposes, the failure by anyone to report acts of homosexuality to the police for appropriate action, and the engagement in acts of homosexuality by anyone which results in other persons contracting a terminal illness. The decision was occasioned by the filing of 4 petitions challenging the act, which was passed and assented to law on May 26, 2023 by President Yoweri Museveni. Tens of thousands of people have fled the Haitian capital Port-au-Prince to escape a surge in gang violence over the past weeks. UN figures suggest more than 53,000 left the city of 3 million between 8th to 27th of March. The UN is warning that the rural regions to which many have fled are not equipped to deal with such a large influx of displaced people. Meanwhile, gangs are attacking businesses in the capital, torching pharmacies and vandalizing schools. Haiti's national police succeeded in repelling an attack on the presidential palace on Monday, but armed men stormed the nearby State University of Haiti hospital, known by its initials HU, to use it as their command center. HU had closed last month due to the violence and was meant to reopen Monday. The damage caused by the gangs is likely to further delay its opening. And 2 men pleaded guilty to insider trading in securities in the company that ultimately took former U.S. President Donald Trump's media business public. Michael Schwarzman, head of Miami-based venture capital firm Rocket One Capital, and his brother Gerald Schwarzman each pleaded guilty to 1 count of securities fraud before U.S. District Judge Louis Lehman in Manhattan. Rocket One Chief Investment Officer Bruce Gallick is scheduled to face trial on related charges on April 29th. Hamas chief Ismaili Haniyeh has said that the Islamist movement at war with Israel was sticking to its conditions for a ceasefire in Gaza, including an Israeli military withdrawal. The exchange he referred to would be a release of Palestinian prisoners from Israeli jails in exchange for Israeli hostages being held in militant Gaza since October 7th. Israel had said it is interested only in a temporary truce to free hostages, while Hamas says it will let them go only as part of a deal to permanently end the war. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has insisted that Israel will push its invasion into Rafah at the southern end of Gaza, where 1.5 million people have sought shelter. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Asseto. Good morning.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Probably at this point looks like a dream because it looks like it will go for some time this morning. Let's see when we wake up from this. For now, still very, very busy into the CBD this morning. It's not letting up coming in from Moranga Road, and that continues to get crazier. So the whole of Kipande Road now is completely full. Everybody looking for an outlet. Slip Road, forget about it. Coming in from Kijabe Street, perhaps is an option, but not really, because then you get onto the Globe Cinema overpass. Just giving an update about what that looks like. So if you're in the middle of it, that means that you still have a ways before you get out. Uhuru Highway is not an option. So this is what folks have suggested, and it may seem crazy, but it's what makes sense. If you then find your way, then round from Moy Avenue after you've come up over the Slip Road, then you're all right. But if you come off Wangari Maathai, the best bet for you now is to go out towards Westlands. Come out on James Gishuru, go through Hurlingham, and then come out into the city via way of Haile Selassie, if that is your end goal. It's crazy, but it makes sense right now. Let's keep talking. Tell us what it looks like in half an hour. SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag The Situation Room.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
This Thursday, it's Justice Thursday, the 4th day of April 2024. If you're just joining us, thank you for joining us. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation on YouTube, on Facebook, on SpiceFM, on KTN every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. The next conversation we want to have is the situation in a country not so far from where we are. And Kenya has been involved in trying to resolve the conflict that has erupted in that country, and this is in Sudan. We're joined by a political economy, peace building and development practitioner, Johar Kamal Kanu. I got it. I did.
Well huh? We're not going to ask you to say it again.
I can say it again. Johar Kamal. That is one name, Johar Kamal. Kanu. Kanu we can say any day. We know Kanu very well. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for having me this morning.
It's good to have you here. Our colleague Siti Muga is not in. He'd have loved to have this conversation, but he will be here tomorrow. He usually gives us a proverb every day. So every week he goes into one African country and he mines proverbs from that country. Every day he brings a different proverb. He sent me the proverb, and the job that a guest has on the hot seat is first to listen to the proverb and then give us your interpretation of that proverb.
I hope it's not in Swahili.
It is in English.
Okay.
The proverbs for this week are from the country called Senegal. It's been in the news recently, right? After an election, new president, youngest elected president in Africa, opposition chief who was also incarcerated, and his boss has now been appointed as prime minister in the country. But the proverb, it says, if the dog is not at home, he barks not. If the dog is not at home, he barks not. Johar, what's your interpretation of this proverb?
If the guardian is taken away, then he cannot chase you.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
If you go into a homestead that has no dog, it will not bark.
Yeah.
If the dog has left, then you're free to get in.
Yeah.
It's one way of actually looking at it.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Other interpretations have been looking at the dog itself and what the dog is doing wherever it's gone when it's not at home. Now you've brought in a new perspective, which is, so the dog in this home is absent. So there's nothing barking to stop you from coming into this home.
Yeah.
That's a good one. What made you think of it that way? Is it because of, your own experiences in life and what's happening now in your home country?
I think there is that. There is also my culture whereby dogs are mostly to guard houses. So yeah, this is what they're kept for mostly. So if they're not there, then that level of guardianship is not there. Yeah.
That's true. That's a good one. Thank you very much. So I asked you before we went on air, when was the last time you were in Sudan? And you said that was in April. Was it April, March last year?
April 2023.
Exactly a year ago.
Yes.
There's been a conflict in that country that's been going on for all this time. What's your history with Sudan? How long have you lived in Sudan?
I was actually born and raised in Sudan. It's true that when the war started, I was living in Khartoum, the capital, but I was born in another part of the country, the western part. And then we were moving around because of my father's work. So I can proudly say that I've lived in all parts of Sudan, and I've visited all parts of Sudan. So the country holds a very special place in my heart.
But why did you leave? Did you leave because of this conflict?
I left because of the war. I left 2 weeks after the war. This is when I fled the country, because where I used to live is very close by to where the clashes were very heavy and so on. So I left Khartoum, I went to another state, then another state, and then we crossed the border and we ended up in Kenya.
This war erupted was it a Sunday morning, if I remember
It was
correctly?
a Saturday morning.
It was a Saturday morning, right? Things just went haywire. Take us through the motions of that day.
It's
and
true,
maybe weeks prior.
It's true that the war just started on a Sunday morning, but even before that we could see that it was building up. as some of the listeners might know, few years ago, Sudan had a very big revolution. It was revolutions that was fueled by youth, by women. It was participated in by most of the social categories. It was one of the most beautiful things that happened to the country, because it showed us what civilians can do, that they can bring about change peacefully. And this revolution, of course, has ended up the regime of Bashir, the famous Bashir regime, which lasted for 30 years. And after that, we were going through a transitional period, which was very bumpy, to be honest. Of course, in any transition, you would find different political parties, you would find different political groups, you would even find the army trying to find the way of power sharing throughout the period in order to reach elections and so on. And in Sudan, that wasn't easy, because 30 years of an autocratic regime is not easy. Political parties were not able to practice politics openly. People, even political people, were not able to express their opinions, and different parts of the society were just not able to express. So once we had that open space, we weren't necessarily able to come about and overcome our differences and so on, and come up with a structure. So the way that the transitional period was governed was through what we call a constitutional document, which was mainly naming a partnership between the civilian faction that was leading the revolution, and the military faction, which is mainly the army, the national security, and the rapid support forces, which has risen to the media recently. But yeah, it was the two groups sharing power at the time. And of course, military has different priorities, and civilians have different priorities, and they don't necessarily meet all the time, especially in a country like Sudan that has a long history of wars, a long history of militarization, and so on and so forth. So the transitional period wasn't going very smoothly. In 2021, we had a coup on that constitutional document, and this coup was staged by the armies, rapid support forces, and some civilian factions that moved to that side. This coup has ended the term of the Prime Minister at the time, Dr. Abdullah Hamdok, and then the country was just in a series of protests where young people were protesting the coup, were protesting the adoption of democracy, and so on and so forth. And then this led up to the build of the war, because after the coup has happened, the coup camp itself was fractioning. Even the military side was now thinking, how can they divide the reefs amongst themselves? And this is where the issue started to rise to the surface, where the army and the RSF, the rapid support forces, they started to appear as competitors rather than people on one camp, and so on.
And that also then silenced the civilian side, right? Why did the civilian side of this revolution go quiet?
I think they were silenced. It wasn't an option, because the issue of security is always a priority. When you talk about security, people think that's a priority in face of other things. So now when you're talking about two warring generals, people think about stopping these two warring generals. They don't think about, inclusiveness of civilians. They don't think about representations. They don't think about, hearing the grassroots voices and so on. I think this is what's been happening. But I would say, in defense of the civilian camp in Sudan, that has been working very hard over the past few years, they've been trying. But also, in face of the military machine, it's not easy to have a higher voice in face of the people holding the arms and so on. But the civilians have been trying, and I take very high pride in the civilian movement in Sudan, the grassroots mobilization, even the political elite, even though we criticize them a lot, but they've been trying. But in face of the arm, it's not that easy to have a higher voice.
Okay. Yeah. What was the sound? What was the message of the civilian uprising at the time, from this side of the world? Anywhere outside of Sudan, it was very clearly heard, Bashir must go. But what was the message that the people in the uprising were actually trying to put out?
It was actually three words: freedom, peace, and justice. These were the words that were chanted on the streets, written on the walls. They were even posted on social media: peace, justice, and freedom. These were the demands of the people. And then when you go through them, it pretty much covers everything. We wanted peace because many parts of Sudan have been going through war for many years. We wanted freedom from the regime that was capturing the country. And we wanted justice for all the crimes that have been done on the Sudanese people for all these years. So these were the demands, and there still are the demands even until now, because now what's happening is that we're just adding more criminals to that list that need to be prosecuted.
But then, Johar, if you look at that uprising, the civilian uprising, with these three words, these are strong. They were rising against a military regime that had been there for decades, all right? So those holding power were the military side of government. But then the people, through mobilization from villages and all, and pouring onto the streets, were loud enough to actually force the military side to do something about it. But then it just died too fast, in my opinion. That loud voice of saying, so we want freedom, we want justice for all the atrocities committed, we want peace, and the route to that is a democratic election, and then the democratic election does not happen, and then the voice of the people starts fading. It faded too fast.
I think just to start with, I wouldn't say it has faded completely. Up until the month where the war started, just before the month where the war started, there were still protests on the street. It wasn't just getting enough attention as it used to be before. This is the first point. The second point, I think, because I did some work on nonviolent action and nonviolent movements and so on, it's a bit natural for nonviolent movements to fade out eventually, because these are popular risings. They depend on mobilizations, they depend on people's attention, and people have different things to do in their life. I cannot guarantee that 1 million people would march the street every day. But what happens for you to transform this into actions? You have to be strategic about your goals, and you have to network with other groups. You have to network with demand groups that are dedicated for this. You have to network with political parties. You have to network with different factions of government in the country or governance in the country. But if it's just a popular mobilization that's having some very nice slogans that march on the street every day, it's for a fact that it's not going to go anywhere if it just ends there.
It cannot be sustained.
Exactly. So it's not just Sudan. I think it's a trend that we see in different parts of the world, where if a revolution is not followed up with a strategic action, then it doesn't go anywhere.
But then we have seen those, just like you said, we've seen those lessons from elsewhere. In fact, we were having that conversation here when the uprising was happening, and we kept saying, we just hope this doesn't go like the Arab Spring. We saw people pouring onto the streets during the Arab Spring, and then such revolutions are usually taken over, usurped by others with interests. And the interest of the people who are coming out into the streets, who are spending sleepless nights, mobilizing, who are shouting and screaming and saying we want a change, are not realized. What is it that why don't we learn these lessons as we get into a new popular uprising everywhere?
I think I agree that lessons were not learned, but I think it's not just on the Sudanese people. I think it's like a sauce where it has different ingredients. The people can do their part, the government has to do its part, the neighboring countries have to do some part, and even the international community. For example, as people were marching on the streets, there were some brutal suppression of this protest. We didn't hear so much on the international media about it. People weren't aware that people were being shot on the street as they were peacefully protesting. No one was echoing that sound, saying, this brutal suppression or this brutal oppression of protest of peaceful people needs to stop. There was no, I would say, civil society to civil society solidarity in the region. There were so many missing elements that when you look at it, you would say it would just die eventually, because you can't just survive on your own. You can't just make this sauce with one ingredient, I guess.
So, present day. And the events leading to present day, which, for example, saw you, and not probably, but most assuredly, many other people leave Sudan for whatever reason. Fear of life, or rather fear for life, etc., etc. What now led to you leaving, to thousands of other people leaving, and what's the present situation?
Millions, actually. It's almost 2 million people that have crossed the borders from Sudan at the moment. So basically, as you said, it's fear for life. For example, as I said, my area was in direct shelling. So there was no heavy place there was no safe place where you could go to and have a safe haven there. This is the first thing. And now people continue to live. So I think because there are different obstacles to live in the country, people choose the safest and the most attainable options. The first option is, of course, to go to a safer area, because the war was not in all the states. Or still is not in all the states. But as you move, for example, you move from Khartoum to the nearest state, which was Jazeera state, it was becoming very expensive to even live in these areas because at wartime you find so much inflated prices, you find so many brokering happening. People are not able to afford this housing. Even the services are overloaded, like the hospitalization and so on and so forth. So people find themselves moving as they go ahead. Like you go to the first place where you're displaced, you find it not as convenient as you thought it would be, and then you continue moving. And then for some people that had the means, they decide to cross the border. But even that, it has its own challenges. Having the papers, speaking the language of the country where you're going, just having the courage to go to a new place and start a new life and so on. So you asked me about the different things why people are leaving, and there is also oppression, because now for civic actors, they even target it with lists. Like in certain areas, some of the warring parties would just come with a list asking for this person and that person who are known to be active, who are activists and so on, and ask for them. So people just leave for fear of persecution and so on.
There's two warring factions now, both armed. What is the actual dispute?
Power. I would say it's power, because in the build-up for the war, there were conversations about security sector reform, where people were talking. Of course, the Rapid Support Forces started as a militia. It was then formalized by the parliament, and then the state started treating it as an official force. Though the people never recognize it as an official force.
And then the people didn't.
The people didn't. The people
they
didn't
still looked at them as a militia.
As a militia, because we know the history of this militia in Darfur and in different parts of the country, as it was used as a weapon against the citizens and so on. And then there is the state army, which is in itself, of course, it's the national army, but in itself, it's been highly criticized by the people, especially during the revolution and so on. So there were different things that they were disputing against, but mainly it was this integration, where they were saying in 2 years' time the RSF would be integrated in the army, or in 10 years' time the RSF would be integrated in the army. Of course, each faction had their own interest in this timeline, and it meant that they would have to divide so much economic reaps, because the two groups have massive economic empires in the country. The army has huge military industrial complexes. The RSF has very notorious gold industry, where they've been exporting the gold from Sudan, selling it outside and getting the money for themselves and so on, in addition to so many mercenary activities, like sending soldiers across the border to fight for people and get money for it. So it was mainly power, then economic kind of gains, and in addition, of course, like just ruling the country and having control over everything.
Sounds like those are two things that it would be very, very difficult for them to agree.
Yeah, because dividing this because the army controls a lot of economic activity in the country, and so is RSF. So it's not something that you would give up easily.
Okay. So bring in IGAD, bring in the African Union, bring in the international community, even those across the Red Sea. All of them could see that these two guys were going to clash at some point. What did they do?
In my opinion, they didn't do much, and I think there is a reason for that, because all these institutions that you were talking about, they have their own internal contradictions. Even if it's a regional bloc, this regional bloc is composed of countries that some of them are neighboring to Sudan, some of them are not neighboring to Sudan, but they have interests with some of the parties. So when they sit on a table and they decide on what to be done with Sudan, they think about the interests. They don't think about the interests of the average citizen that's suffering, that's hungry, and so on. I mean, it might be coming as a priority, but at a later stage. So the first thing is always the interest of the different groups. This is why you find these competing platforms. This is why there is this forum shopping, whereby, today there is negotiations in Jeddah, tomorrow it's in Manama, the other day it's in God knows where, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Okay. So as we look at a situation today where, looking at conflict, looking at full-on war, what would characterize the situation in Sudan today?
There is a huge humanitarian crisis in Sudan at the moment. People say it's the biggest humanitarian crisis in the world currently, where 25 million people, according to UN agencies, are in need of aid, where 3.7 children are malnourished, where 20 million people are internally displaced, and mind you, Sudan is 40 million people, so that's half of the population, and so many children are dying of malnourishment, so many people are struggling even across the border in IDP camps and so on. Education have been stopped for a year now, No child has been going to education in Sudan, to school at all, for a whole year now, even in safer areas, because even the schools in safer areas are being used as shelter houses. The health system, of course, in the war areas is completely out of control. Khartoum, I think Durman town in Khartoum has only one functioning hospital, and that's a place that's hosting around 2 to 3 million people. It's a lot, yeah. And even in safer areas, there is very high load on these health services, whereby the initial people that are there are going to these places, and the people that are displaced are also going to that places. And of course, there are new fatalities and new injuries because of the war and so on and so forth. In addition to that, which worries me the most is the huge militarization and recruitment, because as the war continues, what's happening is that average citizens feel the need to protect themselves by themselves, whereby there is a huge arms trade being expanded in the country. So many people are taking benefit of the situation where they're selling arms to civilians. People are training to protect themselves. Even young children trying to carry up arms in order to protect themselves and their families and so on. And in my opinion, this is one of the things that are going to be very difficult to be reversed in the near future.
Let's take a break. We'll continue this conversation shortly. It's 28 minutes after 9. Our guest this morning is, let me take a pause and then I can read the name, Joratel Kamal Kanu. She's a political, economy and development practitioner from Sudan, born and raised in Sudan, left Sudan last year when war broke out in that country. And it's been 1 year since, and the situation is not getting better. Like you've just heard, half of the population is displaced. Many children, all children are not going to school, all schools closed. Many people are not able to access health services that are just the basics, food, shelter. 25 million people in need of urgent aid. What is the international community doing about it? They'll say they're doing something. Is it enough? We'll ask her. She'll tell us 9:30.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
If a lion shows you its teeth, it doesn't mean it likes you.
It doesn't mean it likes you. It wants tax. A liar calls as witness one who is either dead or far away. Say it in Somali.
Below, nintinta, yeninter, ayu markati kadikta. You know this character called liar. He has disturbed people. So when you tell him who are your witnesses, he will take you to a place where it is difficult to verify.
For someone like me who sweats a lot, I cannot survive there. Sweating is biblical. Good. And he must blame it on Adam, not me. Because Adam messed up and he was told, now you fellow you, by the sweat of your brow, thou shalt eat.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Cloud cover still in Nairobi this morning. We'll see highs of 23 and highs of 21 in a cloudy Nakuru at 18. Light rain continues in Nyeri through the morning at 18. Highs of 24 and 21 will be the high in a cloudy Eldoret at 17. It's cloudy in Mombasa at 28 and partly sunny at 29 in Malindi. 23 and mostly cloudy in Kisumu and cloudy conditions at 22 in Kakamega. Out into Kampala, the sun is now shining after the rain at 22 and at 27. Dar es Salaam is mostly cloudy and we'll see highs of 30. Looking into Johannesburg, it's partly sunny at 17 and Mogadishu at 30 is sunny going to highs of 33. It's 19 and sunny in Addis Ababa with highs of 23. And looking into a hazy Lagos now at 28, we'll see highs of 34. Cloudy at 24 in Kinshasa. Looking quickly into a partly sunny Beijing Thursday afternoon, and at 12 degrees, Paris is heavy rain this morning. It's mostly cloudy in London, leading to rain at 11, and light rain in New York still Wednesday night. Coming into Thursday, we'll see highs of 10 and lows of 4. By now we said the out of traffic hour, but we're not. Okay, so if you're coming off the Thika Superhighway, you may be done with the Thika Superhighway, but if you get to Moranga Road, you're going to be stuck there for a while. You still are, because inbound traffic is still bumper to bumper. Still bumper to bumper on Wangari Maathai. You take that split coming in from the Thika Superhighway, and then now going out towards that interchange at the museum, and then Chiromo. So there's tailback traffic on Wayaki Way. and it's also still very heavy than trying to get into the CBD. Slip Road, Globe Roundabout, all of that still very, very busy. The rest of the city is done and dusted. But here, leading into the city is going to continue for some time. We'll talk through the day to get your way out of this. SpiceFM KE on X.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
Conflict in Sudan. What's happening now? What's the future? What do we expect? Joral Telkamal Kanu is our guest, political economy, peace building and development practitioner. So Joral, you're telling us about 2 million people have left the country since the outbreak of this particular conflict. Where have they gone to?
Different places depending on different options you had, and as I said earlier, the different abilities. Those who are who have passports and official papers and visas to places, of course they went to these places. At the beginning, because all airports were not working, people had to cross land borders to neighboring countries and then fly from there. Now we have one functioning airport where people can fly out. People that didn't have the ability or that privilege, they went to the nearest option. For example, most of the people in Darfur, they're displaced into Chad. Most of the people in the southern parts of Sudan, they're displaced into South Sudan. Most of the people in the northern part and in Khartoum, they've moved towards Egypt. And I'll come back to that. And of course, some people, a few people maybe went to Ethiopia and Eritrea and so on. But the difficult situation is the entry to these places. For example, Chad and South Sudan, they don't require visas to enter for Sudanese people, at least for Sudanese refugees fleeing the war. Even though the situation is not ideal across the border in these camps, but still available for people to just flee across the border and go. For Egypt, for example, before the war, Sudan and Egypt have what we call the Four Freedoms Agreement, whereby Sudanese and Egyptians could move freely across the border. And for Sudanese, it was women, it was men over 50, and children below 15. So it was a wide range of people that could go to Egypt without visas and so on. Surprisingly, a few months into the war, Egypt has unilaterally stopped that agreement, and now every Sudanese person is required to get what they call a security permission to enter Egypt, and it's expensive. And
what's the process of application for this?
You go to the consulate, you apply, you wait. I know some people have been waiting for a month to get into Egypt at the moment. So it's a very long, tedious process, and it's also expensive because so many brokers are working into that at the moment. So it's becoming up to $2,300 to just get that permission, which is, of course, not so many people can afford. I mean, very few people can afford it. 2,000 US dollars. Yes, exactly. Wow. That's from one end. Additionally, from other countries' sides, there are so many other countries in the region that are welcoming, but they have the regular visa process. For example, for you to apply as a Sudanese person to apply for an online visa, it's not a valid option because, first of all, before the war, we had sanctions whereby I think 99.9% of the people didn't have online payment cards. So even for you to apply for a visa to Kenya, to Ethiopia, to Uganda is not that feasible. You have to know someone that has a visa card that can pay for you and apply for you so that you enter this country legally. So even though it seems to be easy, but when you look at the situation of the Sudanese people, it's not that affordable. Not to mention all the financial restrictions, other restrictions related to culture and language, because of course a person would prefer to go to a place where at least they speak the language, and that's not the option with all the neighboring countries. One more thing that I want to highlight is that before the war, Sudan was a big host for a lot of refugees. I think it's the second biggest host in the region after Uganda. And with the war, of course, these refugees were already vulnerable, and now they're extremely more vulnerable. We had so many South Sudanese refugees. We had so many Ethiopian, Eritrean, even Syrian refugees that were hosted in Sudan. And after the war, they found themselves in a situation whereby they can't go back to their initial countries, and they can't remain in Sudan. So they're somewhat stuck where they cannot find any exit and so on. So
a
even
rough
that
estimate of how many?
It was around 1 million something refugees in Sudan. This was the official stats, but I'm sure it was more than this since we have many borders. We share many borders with many countries.
Okay. I've not heard you mention the Gulf countries in the Middle East. Are there people who've crossed into these countries?
Yeah, because historically so many Sudanese people were expatriates in these countries. Some of these countries have provided some methods whereby you can bring your family members, you can add them to your visa and this kind of things. But of course, that's not available for everyone. It's not cheap to do this process, and it's not cheap to even take your family to that place. So yeah, even the countries that offer these options, it's not for everyone.
Okay, so here we are. You see, in a position of conflict, obviously, those who flee a country because of the war at the time are not necessarily thinking about the future at that moment. Usually it's the preservation of life at that time to remain alive. But what do you see? What is it that people at some point would want a peaceful Sudan where they would now then be able to return to and fight for those three things, or rather see the establishment of those three issues that you mentioned? We've seen areas of conflict, of war previously, where people who have fled want to start a new life where they have gone to and don't want to come back to what a warring situation then has presented. What do you think is the area, or what is the general sentiment now? Are people giving the opportunity to this conflict to live out the length of it and come back home, or people are done?
I think that's a good question. From my personal interactions with many people and even with my own family members, I think if I'm not mistaken, every Sudanese person wants to go back. For different reasons. First of all, because, especially for young people, because they think this is a country that we've been fighting for years now. We can't just let go like that. And if we weren't forced, we would leave. Because for so many people, they had the opportunity to just leave the country before they didn't. This is from one end. The second thing is that it's just not easy in the new places where people have moved to. It's not easy to be integrated into these new communities to start a new life. So you would rather just go back to an area where you know. And there have been stories about people that have went back, even in Khartoum, as it's been, raging with war. People still would want to go back and live in that area that they're familiar with and try and make a living in under the shilling and so on and so forth. So this is the general sentiment. So far, people want to go back, and so far, people are counting the days where it's just an option for them to go back there. Most of the people, even if they want to make a living and start a life, it's just to sustain rather than the long term. But I don't know, as the war prolongs, I think it's just wouldn't be an option. You just find yourself immersed into this new life where you just have to survive.
So what's the status of the people who were in these other countries? Those that have left Sudan as refugees, and they're in different countries. They're in Kenya, such as yourself. There are many who are in South Sudan, in Egypt, in Chad. What's their status?
So the biggest host countries for Sudanese refugees at the moment are Chad, Egypt, and South Sudan. And in all these three countries, the situations of the refugees are very dire. For example, in Chad, people that have fled there are fleeing from Darfur, where the situation have been extremely violent. These people have left with nothing. They have no resources whatsoever. They're in IDP camps, where aid is very short. Aid is at shortage, where people cannot even get enough aid in these camps. The situation in Egypt is quite similar. Because of the difficulty to enter the country, so many people have resorted to illegal ways to enter the country. So we've been seeing a rise in smuggling trade for people from Sudan to Egypt, whereby, of course, you pay a lot of money to go into the country, and then once you're there, you don't have the official papers. So you either live in the dark or try and neutralize your situation by going to UN agencies and try and get IDP cards and so on. South Sudan, of course, most of the returnees are people that were refugees from South Sudan in Sudan. They're, of course, vulnerable. They had to go back into very difficult situations. And same thing for Sudanese. And of course, South Sudan has its own internal issues whereby it's not necessarily able to host all these people. And as I said, agencies are saying that they don't have enough aid to cater for all these amounts of people and so on.
So what's the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees doing?
As you said, they say they're doing things, but in reality, they say that they're short of funds, they're unable to sustain all the funding needed and so on and so forth. So last year they were different announcements that aid is short, in some areas even with 70% shortage, where they cannot support people inside and outside of Sudan and so on. And I think in this case, it's not necessarily the agency's fault, it's just the failure of the international community as a whole. We've seen cases where whenever there is a global issue, the international community just changes its attention to that particular issue and leaves the other one. Sudan, unfortunately, and it's just so sad to say this, we have to compete for attention with other crises.
Yep.
Like, for example, at the beginning it was the Ukraine war, and then there was the Gaza war. Even though I acknowledge how bad these situations are, at the end of the day, it's just not fair for a country to compete for who has the worst crisis in order to get more aid and more attention and so on.
Right. Is there any form of support for these refugees that's coming from the African Union?
Not that I'm aware of. I know that the UN agencies are the lead intervener in these different areas, but I don't think the African Union has direct humanitarian support at the moment.
So what it's only doing is only dealing with the political situation.
Yes, exactly.
Trying to resolve the political situation. From your own assessment, how is that doing? How are they doing on that?
I think it's not going well because we're still in war, aren't we? So yeah, I think the African Union and the region in general still has much more to do. And I hope to see some progress in the coming month at least. At the beginning, it was mainly, at least the attempt to broker peace was led by countries from outside the region. It wasn't necessarily led by the region. And when the region was coming in, it was more of a dividing factor rather than a unifying factor. So I hope to see that changing in the next few months.
Well, indeed. What would be... I mean, from what we see, usually we already know what the narrative is that has been created from two conflicting parties. And unfortunately, the country suffers. We know this. What would be for that pendulum to swing in a way now that everybody would be happy, that would bring about ceasefire, that would bring about peace?
We need leverage. So far, I haven't seen leverage on any of the two warring parties because, as I mentioned at the beginning, is that all these countries around us and all these groups, they have interest, and interests usually go both ways. So these interests are not being leveraged in a way whereby these people are forced in a table to sign an agreement that they abide by. So because of that, because of lack of this leverage and this pressure, we don't see that commitment yet. And I think this is where the international community fails, is that so far they're not able to give up some of their interest in order to bring these people together and put the interests of the Sudanese people first.
Do you think there's interference from some of these countries, like direct interference, direct support of factions, one and the other, in the countries that are currently being seen to be taking some move or some steps towards pacifying Sudan?
There've been official reports about interference of the United Arab Emirates, for example, supporting the rapid support forces through Chad. Of course, the two countries have denied these allegations, but it's been issued in reports, and even Sudan has issued the official memo at the UN Security Council about UAE's interference in the current war. So this is, for example, one direct apparent interference. There are other linkages that might not be as clear, but they're just natural. For example, Sudan and Egypt, of course, we had a very long history of relations. So it's only natural that Egypt would see a particular side and then aim to support that side. Same thing for Ethiopia. So these are same thing for South Sudan and Chad. So all the neighboring countries of Sudan, of course, they have historical ties with different parts of the warring parties, and they would want to sustain these relations.
The general of the army was not happy with Kenya and our president playing a part in this conflict. Why?
So at the beginning, I think it was about the way the narrative was shaped. The army does not accept being equated with the militia, even though it's the army that established the militia, but you know, today they don't accept. So the treatment of the two generals, of the two warring parties as equals is something offending for the army as an official state institution. So I think this is where things have been a bit messed up, at least from the army situation.
Was it resolved?
I think it's been frozen at the moment. I haven't seen any statements recently. But I haven't seen like any exchange of statements in the recent times. I don't think it's fully resolved, but it's frozen.
Is there at the very least a desire to have a conversation? Is there at the very least to have both sides come to the table to have a discussion? Because even without the desire to say, okay, well, let's see the possibility of us talking, then it's very difficult for you to see how you can broker any kind of peace. And I think that there can be external parties that oftentimes will say, well, let's do this, but that's not a situation that you can force. I don't know of a conflict on the planet that has been broken into a situation of peace without the desire from both sides as an element for that menu.
Yeah.
I don't think there's ever been one on earth.
Yeah.
So is there at the very least something to say, okay, well, we don't like this either, but this is what is going to have to happen in order for us to. Is there at least that desire?
Yeah, I think that's the unfortunate situation, is that that desire is not yet mature. It's not fully ripe yet, because it's been fluctuating. For example, when RSF makes an advancement on the grounds, they don't want to negotiate. When the army makes an advancement, they don't want to negotiate because they feel they have the bigger arm and so on, the bigger hand, at least the upper hand. So eventually it depends on how they see the situation or the military advancements on the ground, and then they decide if they want to negotiate at the moment, even though officially they would say, okay, now we're willing to sit down and talk and so on, but in reality they're not acting upon it. But the other worry is again something that I've mentioned earlier, is the extreme recruitment by civilians. Is that now, even if the two warring parties, the official armies, sit down on a table, you have so many citizens that have arms that are not part of these two groups that they don't want to stop now, because my brother was killed, my sister was raped, my village was burnt. Why do you want me to sign a peace deal? So the longer this prolongs the war, the more difficult it becomes to just bring all the peoples that are carrying arms in one table and make a peace deal.
Tell us about the economic strategic importance of Sudan. I mean, from your location along the Red Sea, you've mentioned gold and gold deposit and RSF trading in gold. What are these economic issues at play here? So, yeah, there are different things at play. Of course, there is the location, as you mentioned. Sudan has its Red Sea port. At the same time, I see Sudan as a link between North Africa and the Horn of Africa, between Sahelian Africa and the Horn of Africa again. So it's at the crossroads of the different parts of Africa. Hence, it can be a major trade route between these different regions and so on. This is for one example. And of course, just like many African countries, Sudan has massive fertile land. It has so many minerals. It has so many animal resources. And before the war, Sudan was exporting a lot of its own produce to different places. And most of this has been reduced significantly after the war and so on. So this economic value comes from Sudan's location. And yeah, and its own resources. Just natural resources. Natural resources that are not being utilized at the moment. Okay. Let's get a bit controversial and ask, could there be international interests in these economic resources that could then fuel the conflict to remain as it is? I don't think it's a could question. I think it's an is question, because I think it's happening at the moment that different countries have different economic interests in the country. For example, the Red Sea port, of course, is an interest for many countries. So many people want to have ports on the sea. So many people want to have military bases on the sea. So many countries and so on. So, of course, that's been active. Even before the war, there were different negotiations with different countries about who's to have a military base on the Red Sea and so on. Same thing for other resources. Sudan gold is being smuggled to other countries and is being sold to other countries to fuel other wars in other places and so on. Same thing for fertile land and so on. So it's an active kind of quest for resources. It's not something that might happen to sustain the war, if I understood your question correctly. Where do you see the solution coming from?
Normally, I would say the solution comes from the people, because it's the people that would decide what they want. But we also need support. We need serious, committed international and regional support that puts the benefit of the average citizen first, and then I think we could move ahead from there.
In what shape would this support come?
Support, for example, to the civilian peoples that are trying to mobilize, to the civilian peoples that are trying to help people on the ground.
By what? By fundraising for them?
By fundraising, by providing platforms, by providing access to different donors, by these different means, and by advocacy, by telling people, because I'm saying this because even when I was Sudan, I wouldn't know about the details of what's happening in other countries, by just telling people, like today, what's happening, because I assume that not everyone who's listening today knows the full story of Sudan. Yeah. So telling people, mobilizing in different places and so on. It has happened before. When the arrest warrant was issued against Bashir a few years ago, people in different countries were mobilizing, and Kenya played a big role in that. There was a warrant issued for against Bashir in this very country. So I think if we just open up the space, open up platforms, there's a lot to be done.
Do you think, I think there's speculation, and I think there's also that feeling that everybody knows what's going on without actually saying what's going on. But if there was no external involvement in what's currently going on in Sudan, do you think that there will be an organic development of Sudan's own people out of conflict?
There is a possibility, but I'm afraid it would take a while. Because in conflict, your first priority is to save your life. And that comes before everything else. Like, I would be thinking about saving my personal life before thinking of solving the whole situation of everyone. And then as we build up that momentum, it might take a while. And I'm afraid that in this while, we will lose a lot. Yeah.
We see how the world is handling other ongoing crises right now, right? If you look at the crisis in the West, we see Ukraine. And there's a lot of attention being given to it at the UN level, at the big countries, the US dedicating resources into this, in the European countries dedicating resources into this. Look at the situation between Israel and Gaza and the whole focus and attention going into this. Why do you think Sudan is not getting this kind of attention?
I think power plays a different role, and I think there is a mistake that maybe the situation in Ukraine can spill over to other European countries, for example, or maybe because the Israel-Palestinian conflict is a long-standing conflict that have, of course, is different global camps and so on. But the mistake that the people are making here is that underestimating the crisis in Sudan, because if Sudan continues to fail, then it's a failure for the whole region. For example, all the border tribes in Sudan are shared with different countries. So if this part of the tribe in Sudan is suffering, it would probably spill over to the other part that's in Chad, to the other part that's in Ethiopia, to the other parts that are in South Sudan. So Sudan is not going to fail alone. That's the worst scenario, is that as we fail down, we're going to be pulling other countries into this hole as well. And I think this is what people are underestimating at the moment.
Is the failure of Sudan, because this is to survive, then, based on what you're saying, an indictment on the other countries in the region?
Exactly. This is why other countries need to act fast, because you don't want to be pulled down into this conflict. It's in no one's benefit to have the third largest country in Africa fail in the region. It's a very big country to fail. Yeah.
Would power sharing be an option? Do you see the two generals actually sitting at a table and agreeing on any form of political power sharing?
It's an option, but it's not the most pleasant option for civilians, because at the end of the day, you're just repeating the cycle where you're just giving men with arms more power. Where do we see the path to democracy? Where do we see a path to representation? Where do we see a path to fair, just representation of people and so on? So it's an option, but is it the ideal option? Definitely not.
Paint for me the picture of the Johor's ideal option from this conflict to a peaceful Sudan.
It's ideal, as you said.
Yes. Yeah, your ideal option.
It would be whereby there is a permanent ceasefire between the two warring parties, where aid can peacefully enter the country, where the country is being handed to a civilian faction for the transitional period until a fair and just election takes place.
Okay. Ideal. Practical option.
This is where compromise happens.
Yes.
This is where compromise happens. It depends on where you stand and what you're looking for. For some people, they think just a peace deal as a moment we do, because, as they say, civilians have been failing the country for a while by not upping their game, by not doing the things they should be doing. For some people, they think it should still be fully civilian, even if they have their own force, because at the end of the day, it is civilians and it's people that we can talk to and so on. So I think the practical side would just lay somewhere in the middle, depending on who's willing to compromise what.
Do you see the possibility soon?
I hope so, and I pray for it.
It's what the people would like to see.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, as we stand right now, there is no functioning government in Sudan.
There is a government. The army thinks there is a government that's functioning.
Functioning? Because here, remember the things that you said to us. There is one hospital operating in Sudan. Children have not been in school for a year. Roads are impassable. Markets don't function. Is there a functioning government in Sudan?
There are institutions that are partially working in certain areas of Sudan. The majority of the country is in the dark, where there is no access to services. And what's even worse is that areas that are being controlled by RSF, they're establishing their own civilian governments. So it's a situation whereby there are two governing institutions. In safer areas, which is mostly in the east and northern parts of Sudan, it's the government of Sudan that's running things, and areas where RSF is in control, their field officers and some of the civilians are running things. So it's two two countries in one, if I may say.
So currently, what's a civilian elite and civil society doing? The ones that were very, very vocal and they forced Omar al-Bashir out of power. What are they currently doing?
So the things that has happened after forcing Omar al-Bashir out of power is that these civilians were dividing amongst themselves for different, because it's a big political spectrum in Sudan, from the far right to the far left and so on. So these people, what they've been trying to do is to try and bring everyone together, at least under the minimum agendas that they can agree on, in order to form a front against this military side of the government. So these have been the attempts since the beginning of the war, to have a big platform of civilians whereby they can lead negotiations, they can sit on negotiating tables and so on. But of course, these are being highly criticized for being an elite civil society, as you mentioned, that they're not fully representative of the people, that they're not connecting to the people on the ground, they're just looking for their own political interest and their own regional interest and so on. But I hope to see this change in the future, because at the end of the day, the hope would just be a unified, logical civilian front.
Are there like leading lights? People, in various conflicts, there are various names that are mentioned. That even if we went to transition, for example, you'd have so and so and so and so, a group of 5 or 10 that take up leadership.
There are people that are taking leadership. Unfortunately, it's the same people that were taking leadership in the transitional period. So I'm yet to see new faces that bring new hope to the Sudanese people. Because one of the reasons why the civilian front is being criticized at the moment is that it's somewhat recycled faces from the previous period that want to have another opportunity to govern.
Why did that fail? Why were people so pissed off with that transition?
I think because you get disappointed at things that you have high hopes at. I mean, I'm personally not highly disappointed in the military arm of the government. We've been used to it.
From them.
Yeah, I didn't expect much. But for civilians, it's the people that we marched on the streets with. It's the people that we delegate. It's the people that we could talk to, unlike in previous governments. So when you see that fail, your expectations, because they were very high, you would just be highly disappointed.
Yeah, disappointment also is as high. Now speak to the people who are listening and who are going to watch this conversation later, right? What is it that you'd like them to know about what's happening in Sudan and do?
So the biggest worry at the moment is the looming famine. As I keep saying, people are hungry in Sudan, just to put it out there. People are hungry, children are dying out of hunger, and it's going to get worse because, as I said, Sudan has very big fertile land which we're not able to cultivate at the moment. People who manage to seed, they're not able to harvest, and so they're automatically getting hungry. Aid is not the limited aid that's there is not allowed into the country because the two warring parties are not allowing smooth delivery of aid, and people just don't have access to these inflated food prices and so on. So keep talking about Sudan, keep an eye on the famine, push towards more support to the people that are hungry at the moment, push towards more support for regional advocacy, and keep talking about Sudan and don't make it a forgotten crisis.
Stand with the people of Sudan. Bottom line. Joratel Kamal Kanu, thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you for bringing the conversation about Sudan to our audience.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation. Tomorrow is Friday, God willing, we'll be here.